Call the City of Apache Junction City Council work session to order. Roll call.
Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rizzi.
Present.
Councilmember Biggs.
Here.
Councilmember Evans. Here. Councilmember Gremmel.
Here.
Councilmember Nesser.
Present.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay.
You can leave.
For presentation and discussion on the procurement and replacement of fleet vehicles and accessory budgeted for the current fiscal year. Mr. Brian Gleve, excuse me, I almost said grave, excuse me, Gleve. Fleet Service Manager.
Yeah, we were really excited to have Brian here with us. Come on up, Brian. He is an expert in all things fleet.
And he looks excited.
He's super excited, yeah.
And Bryant, we know when we get a good one, you got to keep them and hold on to them.
Bryant, does he have wings on his heels?
Yeah, he's an angel.
Something's different. Did we shift this thing over or something? No? Looks different.
Just move your chair.
Yeah, it is pointing directly at you.
No, it looks like it's moved over.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of council,
It's turned on.
my name is Brian Gleve. I'm with Public Works Fleet. To go over some of the vehicles that we're looking to purchase for the 21-22 budget year. These vehicles, Mr. Powell presented to you earlier, I believe in May at a couple.
These are in the
different
budget,
meetings.
correct, in the budget process, yep.
We're looking to purchase, I believe, 16 in the general fund. 13 of them will be for police. In various areas, we got 7 for patrol, 5 for detectives, and 1 replacement for a prisoner transport van. We have 2 in Parks and Recs. We're looking to replace some of our older Isuzus, and 1 for library, which will replace actually 2 of the vehicles that they currently have. For HERF, we're looking to do 4 pieces of equipment, vehicles and equipment. So we're looking to do a John Deere backhoe with a cost share with our water district, and a new water truck chassis, which will take the tank from one of our existing trucks and mount onto the new chassis to save some cost. Looking to purchase a replacement vehicle, a new Ford Ranger to replace a Jeep Liberty, and in addition to the fleet would be a ditch witch vacuum excavator for our sign department and other areas. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
The only one I have is more just a clarification, and that's in regards to the vehicles for the police department. Mm-hmm. That also includes the lights and all of the equipment that goes into it. Correct. It's not just your standard.
No, all the vehicles that we have listed here, along with the cost, is including all equipment, all lighting, all beds for our smaller dump trucks, et cetera.
Mayor?
You all got some good mileage on them, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Yes.
I have 2 questions. The 3 vehicles, the three not vehicles, but equipment with the HERF funds, can you tell us what their use is?
The backhoe we use for cleaning ditches, digging ditches, water lines and such. Waters also, we're going to do a cost share with the water district, so we'll share it with them to keep the cost down also. So they use it for digging their water lines and such. The water truck we use for our PM10 laws. We water our roads and such when we're doing any shoulder work and such like that, new construction of roads to keep the dust down. The ditch witch is a high pressure washer, basically, with a vacuum with a 500-gallon tank on it. So if they're out potholing for, let's say, a sign, like a stop sign or something like that, we use this so you just don't go out and destroy any fiber optics or something that might be in the ground. So it's just friendly to use this.
Okay. One other question. I presume that the paperwork was drawn up for the HERF funds, specifically stating what their use was for, But that doesn't mean these aren't used by other departments, that they can be?
They can be.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
These kind of things last a long time. They last a long time.
Yeah, I believe some of our current trucks are 2000s. So,
Yes?
The two F-350 XL trucks with the dump beds, because they have lower mileage on them, it says they're in poor condition.
it's due to the age of the vehicle. Our vehicles are, I believe these actual two trucks that we're replacing now, are they 2000s, I think? I think they're 2000s or 2001s. So the age of the vehicle is just basically, we look at when we replace these, we look at mileage plus condition. So due to the condition of the vehicles, just due to the age.
And because what I'm looking at doesn't have the age on it, it just has the mileage, and I'm like, an F-350 with 65,000? That just got broke in.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Sometimes
ma'am.
the parts.
That's the F-350 is what we'll be replacing the Isuzus with. So the cost of the Isuzu is fairly high, so we've been going to the F-350s instead. The Isuzus that we have the 65, 70,000 miles on them, but they're 20, 21 years old.
Trying to get parts sometimes is way more than, or even trying to find them sometimes you can't.
Anyone else over here? Anyone over here? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian, Your Honor. Just one other thing. Right now, we have it, unless I hear differently, to keep on for consent agenda tomorrow night. All right, thank you.
Okay, presentation and discussion of updates of citizen-initiated U.S. flag project in a downtown area. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had asked for this to be placed back on the agenda. It's been a while since we've brought this back up. Actually, the current council has not seen it. It's been since last fall, so under the prior council. So both Liz Langenbach and Dani Greene from VFW Post 7968 are here to give a presentation and update us all as to where we're at in the committee. And then we can all, of course, help to answer any questions that you guys might have. But really just looking for, well, to update you guys on the work that's happened and then get some feedback from you so we can go back and continue working on this project. So.
Liz?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Wilson, members of council, Liz Langenbach, Parks and Rec Director. I'm actually going to turn it over to Dani Greene here, and she's going to go through the slideshow. Back when we brought this forward last time, it was really just the research that had been done, and in the meantime, the citizen group, this is a citizen-led project, and they plan for it to be a citizen and local organization, local vets group funded project, both install and maintenance later on down the road. And Dani Greene and her folks have been very instrumental in getting with architects. I went and visited all the sites with them, and so she's going to be just giving an update today of what we've been looking at to get your guys' feedback, and we'll be getting some more feedback from veterans, but I'm going to turn it over to Dani, and I'm here for support if there's any questions that she can't answer.
Thank you for taking the time, Mayor Wilson and council members. Okay, so we'll get started here. The flag project, update you on, we'll just click right over. Like Liz had said, we do have an architect that is going to be volunteering a lot of his time and efforts into doing it. He's excited about the project. He works with Wolverine Construction, who is also a key player in getting this going. As Liz said, we went there, had him come out, Wolverine was there, everybody involved, and looked at a few sites. The architect estimate right now is about $100,000 approximately, give or take, depending on the site, where we're gonna go. The citizens and veterans, it will be no cost to the city, will be doing the fundraising for designing, permitting, and construction. Like I said, a lot of that is waived due to organizations and companies just actually jumping in and doing it, which is pretty amazing, because that can be very, very costly. So the poll is approximately, just to get you up to speed, since it's been fall since 2020, is $150 The pole, 24 base and narrow to the top, surrounded by 12-inch diameter. Seat wall display plaques of the 5 branches of the military service. We're not sure about the new one. We'll see how that goes. It will be lit and follow all FFA and other requirements that, has to be lit, and we'll be going by all of the FFA rules. Maintenance and costs. Citizens and veteran groups will be committed to the ongoing maintenance and cost. I have been going. We are not in season yet, so I will be doing follow-up of getting veterans and the community's input on how they feel about this. Are they for it? What is their feelings? Where they're at? So I've spoken with the Purple Heart. I've spoken with, obviously, VFW Post 7968 members. We're talking with 9399, American Legion. American Legion has huge veterans numbers. Just getting it out and asking, how people feel about this. This would be a big pull for the city of Apache Junction. The biggest cost, obviously, is the flag. We have to keep up on the maintenance of the flag, so there would be all the veterans groups and other outside organizations that would be donating the money to make sure that the flag was upkept, getting new ones. I've spoke with Luke Air Force Base. They have a wonderful flag that can withstand a lot of the weather. They're willing to help in any way. They're actually very excited, so Luke is on board with this and even helping get that going and helping with the cost. Let's go on to, any questions so far? Okay. So we have a few sites. And this is all just looking at, as Liz said, we've gone to different sites. Let's go to the first one, the focal point. The good thing about the focal point is that there's already a lot of the construction laid underneath for lighting, electrical. We had gone back and forth with the architect. He did like this site about putting it where the tree is, and we had discussed maybe putting the tree up around the flag. We don't know if it would even be good for it. We have to get more information on flag etiquette and the Christmas tree, and then a cost of a new tree. There's a lot that goes into it. So far, the pros were it was prominently in downtown. You have a great view of the superstitions. It's already got the very convenient design, as I had told you. The cons are location of the Christmas tree. Creative solutions could add substantial cost to the project. And parking could be a challenge because there's not a lot of parking in that area. So the draw is great that it's at the focal point and it's a really nice place to see, but would it be people looking, lights? There'd be a lot of things, that a lot more research and data that we'd have to see if that would be a good place. Next, we have the Flatiron Park. At the Botanical Desert Walk, there we were looking at an area, as you can see on your slide, circled. The architect liked that area. That could be a possible point where they could lay the design, and it could be easy access to do. The pros are obviously still downtown, good view of the superstition, and it does have more parking available there. Cons are the underground utility lines will need to be worked around. So we'll have a little bit more, we got to dig some more and see where we're at and make sure all of this will be researched. Like I said, this is just a broad spectrum update of what we've gone over with the architect. So Flatiron Park is another. The Veterans Memorial Park. Obviously, this is a kind of a veterans-driven project. We don't get a lot of things there. It's a really beautiful site. It's kind of something, you know, that the veterans could go there and see. The pros, great view of the superstitions. Location is already dedicated to veterans, and this is a veterans project, and there is plenty of parking. Cons are a block away from downtown. So we're pushing that flag away from downtown, which I know right now we're trying to grow and develop the downtown and make it more appealing for people to go and, you know, see the area. So that's another possible site that we'll be looking at and getting more information, working with you guys on what your thoughts are about it.
Dani,
Yes,
can you go back to one slide?
Yeah, go back.
Just the one, just the previous one. Where would it be?
So
In the
Veterans,
grass?
oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, no.
The Veterans Memorial Park, we're still looking at, the architect has to go to that area and actually look. He has not, what we would call recon that area to be where the best site would be. This is kind of just coming in last minute as a last location. So he will be going over, I will be going with Wolverine Construction and the architect and doing more research on that. That is the only site that we have not really taken a real good look because it just came into play. So that will be something that I can update you with. Okay? Any more questions on the site so far? No? Good. Trying to keep it quick and to the point. Okay, so any feedback from City Council? I have some questions.
I have
Give me questions, though. I'll have,
Go ahead.
always try to have answers.
One of the first things was, is there much difference in the cost so far that you're hearing from different locations?
Yeah, there's gonna be different cost, and what it comes down to is electrical digging, water. Where's laying out. To be completely honest, the architect was very excited about the focal point, because there is just so much ground structure already set there. We would be thinking of adding a cost to have to get a new tree because the tree would have to go up around the pole. And Liz, you can back me when we were doing that. He was like, "Oh, this is perfect," but we were like, "This is kind of already," you know what I mean? So we were going back and forth. That was his favorite site just because there's so much already laid and done there. I was thinking maybe that would relive the brick project that we were doing, that people would be more excited about doing that. But, it's completely what's going to be best for the city. Is it going to be, obviously it won't be an eyesore, it's beautiful, but there's a big intersection there, so that kind of worries us. So cost. Okay, each location's going to be a different cost, and it's going to be different fundraising, and when we do come up with what everybody has agreed upon, all that, then there'll be more numbers to give. The great thing is that there's a lot of people that are very much willing to, and obviously, if you guys know me, I'm really good at fundraising, that are excited about it and want to participate and be part of it. Businesses want to be part of it. I mean, they want to, I've already had people contact me like, "Hey, where do I send my money?" I'm like, "We're not taking money yet." Just so you guys know, there is an account created under our VFW. So the money that has been donated, like Jeff Surdy has donated money, and there's been, all that is underneath our bond. It is protected. It cannot go anywhere. It is only for this flag project. It is in an account where my secretary treasurer has only access to it, and she cannot use it. So the money that already has been raised for this is protected, and that was a problem we had in fall of 2020. We wanted to make sure someone did a GoFundMe and all this other stuff, and we put a nix to that. If any businesses or anything that have already donated, that money is bonded and protected underneath the Veterans of Foreign War. So just to put your mind at ease, no one can touch or use that money. We have not taken in any more money yet because I did not want to move forward with it until we have more information and all the other stuff. I've had many, many local businesses contact me asking, "Hey, we've thought about any businesses that get on the ground floor, getting plaques for them, and showing that they were helping, they donated to create this project." So I have had lots and lots of feedback on it. And people saying, "Hey, if this happens, when it happens, we want to be part of it. We want to donate money. What can I do?"
One of the, when we first started talking about this, one of the concerns, I remember comments being made about how to replace the flag, how often it has to be replaced. And one of the good things about having, once the pole is located and it's secured, it sounds like we've got most of that cost to be taken care of. What's the worst case scenario? The pole sits without a flag until we can get the money. If we have the opportunity to get that pole in right now, or we have people willing to do it, I say let's do it, because the flag is just, we can take care of that part of it.
Yeah, the
That'll
flag
count.
will always be, and Luke has reinforced this with us, so have all the local veterans organizations. There will not be a time when the flag is not flown.
That's great.
Yeah, they have made sure, military is very, very, very much, there will always be a flag. If it's tattered, if it's worn, it will be brought down and disposed of properly. And we will make sure we have another flag, and that was a huge concern, and everybody was like, no, we will make sure that flag is upkept.
Yes,
No, it's getting answered.
okay.
Let's see. Can you give us an idea then, Dani, what we're looking at, what has been collected so far? I know you said you're kind of putting the kibosh on it for now, but just kind of give us an idea.
We're like at $10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have donations that are being held, that I have those organizations holding that money and keeping it, because I do not want to take in any more money at this time until we have more solid information and we have, a site. The council is on board and everything else. So they just said, hey, give me a call. Let me know when it's ready. I know just one citizen alone has offered $10,000 to be just in the memory of his wife that he lost due to COVID. So there's a lot of people that want to see this happen. And I have been making sure that I'm getting feedback and talking to the community. If you guys know me, I'm very much out there all the time talking to people and making sure that we want to cover our steps and I want everyone to feel very comfortable about this project and that everybody be on board. And I'm making sure that I'm doing the research and doing everything I need to do to answer all and any questions for the community and for the city. Next.
Robert?
I have a couple questions, Daniel. Pretty big flag.
Huge.
Would you know the dimensions?
Yes.
Big by big.
Dimensions. This will be the largest flag. Is it just the state of Arizona? I'm going to go back.
Yeah, just really quickly. So I think the flag they were proposing was a 50, so we didn't put that up on here. It will really depend on what the final pole is. So it's a 150-foot pole, but the size of the flag itself is approximately 30 by 50-ish. And it could be smaller, depending on what the architect ends up.
Right, the engineering as far as the height of the
Absolutely.
pole and the diameter of the pole would determine the flag.
Yes.
So is there any talk about relighting it from the top down, maybe solar?
Yeah, so we've been working on that, what's going to be best, because what we don't want it is to, we have coning for light, which is the architect likes, because what we don't want is wherever it goes with the traffic, that it not be any way blinding or, so this is what's great about this architect, and he has done these not, around this area, large flags, but he's done very much. So has the lighting under control where it's called coning, where you can see that flag beautifully, but it will not be affecting any surrounding areas. The lighting will be right on the flag. You still have that nice view of the superstitions, because that was a concern, is it going to be blocking?
Below the flag pointing up.
Yes, yeah, so it's called coning, which is best. They want to use, he thinks it's best. We do have a few other options. It's not, written in stone yet, but it's worked best in these flags, these large flags, for being the best way for lighting and usage.
And that's included in the price?
Oh, yes, this will be included in the price.
And a flag this size, I'm assuming you're going to have a motor to raise it.
Yes, so what it will happen is there is a gear, and you just literally press a button and it lifts it, like the flag we have at our post. It's, goes up and down. This is much massive and heavy. So there is a gear where you press a button, it brings the flag down, it can be changed out. So if we, had this at the focal point or wherever we had it, when we did any veteran ceremonies and we would make sure, the flag was at half mast, but it's very easy to move up and down because it is so massive, and that is part of the cost. It is all electrical. So that's why the architect was excited about certain areas, because a lot of that has already been, the groundwork's been laid.
Okay, so one last question. I don't even know if it's really related, but I would assume a motor, that would have to be 240 volts. I mean, we don't have 240 at the focal point, right? We're just lighting lights with that power there.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So at all the locations, that would be part of their design, and then their construction costs would be connecting to whatever existing power is there. And so it wouldn't be a problem bringing in that electrical, depending on the location, and once they get into the fine details. Those will be some of the things that they'll have to look into.
Okay.
Gail?
I have a question
Sure.
and a couple comments.
Yeah.
When you visited the focal point site, the architect, did he see any need of removing or changing any of those bricks that's already in place?
No, the bricks would not be moved. So where you have, and the best way to see is the Christmas tree, that's where he was looking. Yes, thank you. That's where he was looking. So it would be a good area in a big enough area to where we would not have to manipulate any of the construction there.
Okay, so it would just sit in that dark circle?
Yeah, so exactly. So it would be because obviously that takes a huge base to go in there to hold and secure the flag. And that was kind of already a space that would be used already, and so then we won't have a lot of construction and moving things, because obviously we do not want to do any damage to the focal point or be doing any major changing. And the focal point, that was one of the things he was like, oh, this is like perfect, this is big enough, this is this, and this. So that was one of the pros, I guess you could say, to that, is that wouldn't be doing much difference.
But it wasn't looked at the area behind the focal point at all?
We did go back we did go back there and look. That was another option. We would have to do more groundwork and laying out electrical. We could run off of it, he said,
Yeah.
and do that. We looked back around. It basically comes down to what everybody agrees upon, what's going to be best, and then that's going to affect our cost and where we can hook up. But we did go back there. That would be another option of doing that, because there is a nice area back there, absolutely.
Yeah, and it would also,
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add to that, that's actually where we took them to look first. Whenever I took them over there, that was my idea, was more behind it. But in order to get a photo with the superstitions in the background, then you kind of have to be away from it, go around the focal point and all that. Not that this is the only location, these are just a thought, and so any feedback you have will be great.
well, and personally, I like the veterans area the best and believe that that's the best location, not only because it's veterans, but, you know, one of the original ideas was to be able to have a picture taken. Well, you're going to have to be at Flatiron to take a picture of that flag with you in it. So has anyone done the calculations as far as how far you're going to have to be away to have the superstitions in the background and yet have the person?
Be in there to
With the
do it,
flag.
yeah. That would be a difficult picture for it
See,
to be taken. I
yeah.
totally understand what you're saying, yeah.
Danny, so on that, we did have somebody kind of, while we were out there, go down and take, so at the corner, you can still get a pretty good, depending on how you tilt your camera. It's less ability there.
Or
At
how tall
Flatiron,
you are.
Yeah, at Flatiron, we were able to step far enough back to be able to do it. And of course, with the veterans, the nice thing about that one is that you do have a lot of space to be able to get
In
in there.
between,
But all three of them would have some way taking a photo. It's just that some might be better than others.
Absolutely.
Your Honor. So from my perspective, I mean, obviously I've been working on this. While I love the focal point, my one downside to the focal point is what happens behind the focal point when that starts developing. And that was a big concern that we brought up to the committee, and we talked about that space right behind it and all of that. I think the Veterans Memorial Park is wonderful, but we don't do a lot of events there. If that was something that, we did our Veterans Day tribute there and other things like that, we could absolutely consider that. Just, it doesn't get enough use. So personally, my favorite is Flatiron. I think that space off to the side there, and really when we had talked about it, it was, making sure that it flowed nicely with the park opposed to just kind of set off to the side. But I think regardless of what we do, I'm really excited to continue to see this move forward and all of that. And the one thing to Krista's point about the flag and when it has to come down for repairs and stuff, we were actually able to talk to Luke Air Force Base as well. They maintain it all on base and stuff there. They actually have 3 or 4 that they bring down so that when three are down and one's up, those are in repair, and then it goes right back up and comes down and cycles through. So we would very much be able to do something similar to that, so.
Yeah, they've been a great attribute of
Amazing.
kind of explaining, what it takes. Theirs is obviously that big, but they do have a lot of poles that they take care of. And, obviously we have ones that I've worked with and done that aren't quite as big, but I know about flag etiquette, and I have done all the research and made sure that we will be making sure we take care of all that. So we do the Veterans Tribute for FOTS there. I mean, we have all the other flags. I know it was a concern. We had that one flag. We already have a flag there. There's a lot of different, working parts in this where we're just trying to, work together as a team and get all the input we can to where we think it's going to be best and if we can move forward with the project. So basically, like what we have right now, this is what we have. I'm gathering information constantly. I can keep updating the council on anything and moving forward. And, obviously, if you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to me or want to speak to the architect. We could have him come in and I think that would be a really good, he is the brains of the outfit, if you will. Come in and set up a date where he could talk to you and give you even more further information to help you understand better what works best and what he thinks. It doesn't mean we have to go with where he thinks is best. We can do anything. He said any of those sites though we are able to do so.
Yeah.
I just have one more comment.
Sure.
What you were saying is we don't do a lot at the Veterans
Might be a
Park
draw.
itself, which I've always questioned why we don't have more things happening there. But with the new dog park, the Veterans Park, and Flatiron, they're all just right there. And, I don't think it would be a great difference, one location over the other.
And I agree. We spoke,
As we're
Ms. Evans,
growing.
that would also be, we have the dog park going in. There's going to be a lot more things going on there. And my personal thoughts too on that space is that maybe that will draw more veteran stuff
Yeah.
there.
Bring more activities there.
Yeah, because it is an unused space that we don't, it's a great space, and it could be a draw for us to maybe start growing that area. I mean, at Apache Junction, that whole area is growing very quickly, and this could be a place where we, maybe get on that ground zero with it and do that and bring that draw in and maybe do more things over there, more veterans things, is because I think it's a forgotten space.
Underutilized.
Yeah, that's my opinion, and that's where my vote would be, is for Veterans Memorial Park, because we have it. It's always been there for years. And we should be utilizing it for that purpose. It's also talking about the focal point and what's behind it and the growth. Well, what's behind Veterans Memorial Park isn't going to change. It's this.
No, it's not.
So we know that there's enough room to get back to take pictures with the superstitions in the background. There's adequate parking, which at focal point there is no parking.
Yeah.
So I think the pros all lean towards Veterans Memorial Park. And I think instead of letting it remain as an unused, underutilized, do nothing, no events park, by putting that flag there and making sure that we do events there, I think we can make that into a major area, even if it is a block away from our city center. I don't think that's relevant, Everything doesn't have to be in the same location to do every event. So
Yes,
that's where my vote goes for.
Yes, and that's exactly, we already do have flags there at Flatiron and stuff. We have, so like I have, pretty much at any of the sites, I have, how I like to say, no dog in the fight. Like I would like just to see the flag go up, but I do agree with that it's an unused area. Maybe it would be more utilized, and it is an area that is growing rapidly. So maybe this is something we could definitely take a look at. My next step forward would be to get that architect out there and see what would be best and get a cost estimate for it and see. I'm not very familiar, which is really bad, with that park, but we would have to get some estimates on lighting and electrical and all that other stuff. It would probably be a little more fundraising, but
I think
such
it's
is
already
life.
got electrical, doesn't it, Liz? It's all electrified already.
So, yeah, so what I will do next step for the council is go out there with him and have him, I'm sure Liz will go with me, and we will get more information on that so we can really get more on that site and see where we stand and give more detailed information about it.
Danny, one other thing to look at that is that park, other than the gazebo there and the pavers and stuff that's around it, that's yours to design. You know, you're
There
not
is a lot
having
we
to
could go
take
with.
something that's already in place and make it work. This, you could design it however you want, because it's still virgin land,
Yeah,
if
it's
you will.
raw,
Yeah.
and we could, like I said, we have discussed, businesses that do donate, maybe silver, gold. We want to make sure that we are recognizing those businesses, so we could, the architect had talked to us about designing something, putting plaques, I've talked to Divine Science and doing that, so they really can be part of, a city contribution, even if it's personal, it doesn't have to be business. Anybody that contributed, that they can go out there and say, hey, you know what, I was part of this, we did this, and be proud of it, and their name be out there.
Yeah. Liz, can you tell me, is the name still up on the gazebo of all the people who contributed?
Yeah, so the memorial plaque is still there at the gazebo, and we've talked lots with the veterans groups about doing some updates there. And we don't have events there as much because we now have Flatiron. We've outgrown that site for some of our smaller things, but the 9/11 event that's going to be happening will be at the Veterans Memorial Park, and it certainly is a great opportunity. So I know you have other agenda items, and so I just wanted to see if maybe there were any other last feedback items, or if there's anybody else that wants to weigh in. Tonight is just to get some general feedback. We'll be meeting with Veterans Group and just hearing their feedback, and then coming back to you again with all of that at once, along with the architect's conceptual drawings, so you guys will have another chance to weigh in. So tonight's not the day to pick or anything like that, but just getting hearing these thoughts that you have, I think is super helpful. So are there others?
I just have a little quick comment,
okay.
if I may, and I'll keep it short. Initially looking at the focal point, it was like, oh yeah, great idea. But you really touched on a point. You said not everything has to be in the same area. And I think it's really a great idea to expand our sightseeing. Get people in our downtown, but get them walking around to the dog park and the Flatiron and out here to Veterans. We're talking about hiking and walking and being healthy. I like that idea. Spread them around in the downtown. Give them lots of stuff to go see.
And I'm going to throw my 2 cents in for the Veterans Park, which is obvious reason why. Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
taking the time. We appreciate it.
Okay, presentation and discussion on AM 1-21, proposed changes to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 1, Non-Residential Use Regulations. That's going to be Nick.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Council. So looking at this, all the way back in November of last year, and it's something that's kind of been ongoing with the formulation of the current general plan. So, we've been working on this. So November 16th and March 1st, 2021, so that's both with the old council and with the current council. There's discussion. Our Director Kirch presented a presentation regarding developing a downtown core. As part of that, there was the necessary steps. There's things like developing the downtown Apache Junction master plan. There's creating development design standards rather than just the guidelines that we have, which would allow us to really shape what we receive in terms of development proposals. And then there is revising the B3 zoning, which is the city center zoning, to eliminate like unwanted uses, to be able to shape the B3 zone more into a downtown zoning sector. So with that, on June 22nd, July 13th, and July 27th, we have met with the Planning and Zoning Commission as we have presented amendments to Article 1-5 of the zoning ordinance, which is the article that contains all of the zoning use and bulk regulations. So we have proposed amendments. What this primarily does is amend Table 5-3, which is the non-residential use regulations. As I know you've had the opportunity to kind of look through, that's comprised of, this is a use, is that permitted or prohibited in the zoning district? Yes, no, conditional use permit, and so forth. And what that really does is it forms the characteristic of each zoning district. There was a lot of discussion on the changes, and as time went on, we revised a lot of things, and I'll get to that. And ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the approval of these amendments. Now with that, at first, we were just focused on the B3. That was the original council direction that we were, or at least the motivation that we were looking at just the downtown. And as time went on, we realized, because we've been working on this since last autumn, we realized that while we're looking at just one category, instead of just focusing on the B3 city center, it's like, okay, well, is this applicable to the B5 industrial? Or does this fit in the B1 general commercial? That's more the neighborhood. And as that went on, we found it the most efficient use of our time to just address the whole zoning table at once. There was a lot of things that needed to be amended. That's why we expanded the scope of that. And initially, we asked the Planning and Zoning Commission, hey, is this all right? Should we just move forward with downtown? And they said, we give you the go-ahead, and we wanted to bring that back up to you because we believe that it was the most efficient use to tackle everything at once. There were certain deficiencies. There were a lot of redundancies where some categories were in there more than once. Some categories were vague or unexplained. For example, one of the categories that was added was like on the next slide I talked about it, like there's like gyms or movie theaters, things that just weren't considered in the zoning table. We kind of, on a practical perspective as a planner who did it, we just kind of fit those categories in where it seemed most appropriate. Mm-hmm. And so when we were restructuring this table, we tried to find more, okay, we narrowed things down when relevant, or we broadened it when it was important to do so. There were some things that were overly specific that didn't include things like gyms or movie theaters, but on the other hand, there were some categories that were much too specific, and that just left other categories like, where does this go? So with that, we revised much of the table, but the focus was primarily on the B3 city center zoning. And the goal of that, and that's where a lot of these changes are, the goal of that is to create a vibrant downtown using these best practices. And that's in line with the 2020 general plan, legendary landscapes and lifestyles that was approved. The goal, or I think I flipped that, didn't I? Legendary lifestyles and landscapes. But the goal really being that over time, since all of these planning projects take a fair bit of time, the downtown would really be formed into like a cohesive core, something that's very attractive, something that brings people in. I know downtown Gilbert had a very good experience growing their downtown like that, and we compared our zoning ordinance to other towns such as Gilbert in order to kind of figure out what uses generate activity, things that bring people in. So those are things like, to an extent, retail, certain forms of retail, but especially things like restaurants, entertainment. Some aspect of mixed use, live work, like there needs to be a population downtown, and we have definitely gotten proposals for that. And there's also a way to balance that because we don't want to give up valuable commercial, what could bring people in. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, we're also moving away from categories that don't encourage active downtown. Like there were industrial uses or things like warehousing. We don't really need a self-storage in the middle, right behind the focal point. I don't think that's what we're looking for. And again, I should emphasize that when we're talking about the B3 downtown, it is specifically this kind of crimson dark red. And if there's a potential of expanding it, anything that would be rezoned B3. But we're right across the street on the south side of Apache Trail. You have B2 and B1, which are the more general commercial. So I want to be clear that some of the more open commercial uses are still available in the vicinity, but as we are working on this downtown core, that is what the B3 changes are primarily focused on. And so we moved away from space-intensive, low-use activities. I know there's hundreds of changes within this list, and so first, before we delve into all your questions, I just kind of want to say that was the general motivation. We do have reasons for all of the changes, and we can go into and explain them. I'm not going to say that all of those are the hard, fast, this is the way it should be. A lot of it was input from other planners, from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there's still flexibility, and That's why we're here tonight, and as much as we need to talk about it, I hope to go over that with you. And in addition to the B3, as we revised the entire table, there were a few things that were very important to hit on. Our manufacturing in the B5 industrial, as well as the B4, which was more of a light manufacturing zone, did not meet the definitions that were set forth in the code itself. And the manufacturing categories, there were probably about, I would say, 30 different manufacturing categories. And some of them were as specific as manufacturing, like this is glass manufacturing. This is, well, there's food manufacturing, beverage manufacturing, leather manufacturing. There was just every single use. Some uses were more intense than others. And so we did a comparison of the different cities in the valley and see, okay, well, what is a good practice for just making this more clear? It's like we want this to be accessible, not just for our commissions or for our council, but for every citizen, every resident, every potential business, so that they know, okay, this is what I can do, or this is what's expected. So some of this was just a project in clearing up the code. So one of the big changes was condensing manufacturing into light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing. And a big part of that, it was the change in the B4 zoning district as well. B4 is it's a business park, light industrial zone. Frankly speaking, there are only 8 parcels in the city currently zoned B4. So while it might seem like there's a lot of changes, it's not far-reaching right now, but it restructured the B4 zone so that it can be rezoned later, so people can say, hey, this is what I want, and you know what you're getting. B4 and B5 are more industrial, light industrial for B4, industrial for B5, as they're defined in the zoning code already. But as the table itself didn't necessarily form that zoning district in that way. But those uses are typically the ones that you don't want to put in a neighborhood or right next to a neighborhood. And that's why just the way the zoning ordinance works kind of is to shape that. So as I explained, we added in those missing categories. We simplified other categories for ease of use. One of the proposals with this that isn't part of the zoning table itself is there was a proposal that came because we're getting a lot of residential proposals for downtown as well as the area around it. It was the idea that when a non-residential property, so like a commercial property, I should say, to be frank, when it's been developed for like the old Bash's property, it is commercial. And if someone came in and said, hey, I'm buying this, and they scrape it, and then they decide to put apartments there, we don't want to lose valuable commercial land, especially when it's in the heart of the city. So the idea was, and this was something that even we had a lot of recommendations on, that to introduce some form of language that guaranteed that some form of business or mixed use or some commercial opportunities would remain there. And that could take the place either of like having a minimum of 25% of the building square footage on the new site. So you guarantee that, all right, even if you're having apartments here, the street front will be commercial, or some aspect of that. It can take all sorts of different forms. Or a minimum of the acreage would be used for commercial uses. I put this asterisk here because in the packet I provided you, it says 45%, and we went back and reviewed that kind of in between the staff report being done and said, okay, well, we figured 35% was more of a number. These things aren't hard and fast yet, but we're just lowering that down, and so I want to make a note that that was different from the staff report. Moving forward, if you would like to have another council work session, we're actively planning that August 16th. The public hearing on this is scheduled for the 17th, but as you deem it necessary, we'll determine the schedule. But I would now like to turn the time over to you with whatever questions, however you would like to go through this. I imagine there's a lot of information to go through, but I'm happy to answer.
Turn this side again. Go ahead.
Okay, I do have a few.
Yes.
The first one was tattoo services in the B3. Now, I did go back and look at the planning and zoning videos, and so Joel gave an explanation So I'm not sure if everybody already knows that, but this is why that tattoo service has to be in that area, if Joel will tell us.
There's, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Graham, yeah, there is a case that proceeded through Mesa. In the end, the Supreme Court of Arizona said, this is First Amendment. You can't regulate this. That was one argument that they bought. There were some due process issues also, but essentially, it was, I think, more of the attitude of the elected officials that surprised the Supreme Court, because the record was pretty significant on the attitude towards tattoos. And basically, I don't think the Supreme Court liked that. And so they didn't like what Mesa did, and they said, you can't regulate, and that's just how it is. And that's how the case ended up, and that is at the Arizona Supreme Court level. It didn't go to the Ninth Circuit because there's not a federal question. So that's
interesting.
And staff called me before they put this presentation, or while they were doing it, to make sure that the tattoo issue was addressed.
Thank you, Joel.
A free
I was
speech
just kind of
issue.
surprised by that, I have to say. Okay, so Nick, I got another question for you. So you have elementary, middle, and high school, college, and universities in the B3. That just kind of seems surprising to me. Can you explain what the thought process was there?
So I agree with you. I think, Joel, I think this was another, we weren't sure if we could regulate where a school went. Like,
okay.
Another one.
And churches.
on like churches.
Okay.
We added churches actually weren't in the zoning ordinance. They were considered like a religious organization or like fraternal order, so we split that up. There is a category at the very end, just for information. So as you said, we can't say no, but we did introduce a CUP if it's like a mega church, because at that point, if there's like a parking or traffic issue, not that that just comes to the council. It's not that they can't do it, but there might need to be a little bit more flexibility of if there's, and I don't know if we have any mega churches with over 1,500 people in attendance for one session. But that was incorporated as we were reflecting and pulling from other city zoning ordinances. But regarding the schools, thank you.
If I may, Mayor, just briefly that's messed up, Brian. You got to get someone to fix this. Where'd Brian go? Where'd he go? Oh.
He's on fleet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's on fleet.
There is the general zoning prohibition that says zoning laws, they don't really apply to churches, and there's also a First Amendment issue. Same with some school issues also, whether zoning applies to schools and charter schools. There's also something called the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000. In that document or that law, it says you basically can't create a burden on a religion that unduly interferes with the religious beliefs. So that's another law that I think regulates what you can do with churches, where they can go. And that's the answer. I think that answers the question.
Very good, thank you. Let me see if there was anything else I had. Nope, I think that's it.
Your Honor,
Thank you, Nick.
can I piggyback on that, on education real quick? So I understand that we can't prohibit them, but one of the things that you have listed in the B3 as no is trade school, and I'm just kind of curious as to some of the rationale behind that, because there's, I mean,
Right.
your salon school, beauty school, culinary school, there's trades that aren't necessarily a manufacturing type of opportunity. So what was the rationale behind that?
And I think that's a fair point. It's hard to, I guess, differentiate between every single type. A lot of times they come all together. Like I had family who went to EVIT, the East Valley Institute of Technology. And you're right, and my sister went for the beauty, the cosmetology. And so there are very many different uses. Typically it's all gathered together. So on one side was the cosmetology section, the culinary section, then you have the welding section on the other side. And you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we think these are good uses that we'd like to see more of in certain places. The idea was simply, is this exactly what should be here? While we couldn't say no necessarily to a school for reasons just described, a school itself is typically like a really land-intensive, heavy use, and in this specific spot, we thought it better not.
Okay, and then the second question was similar to the church aspect in terms of scale and parking and traffic issues and things. While I definitely agree that we want them, is there a way to put, a CUP on it so that we could have the ability for it to come to council or P&Z for that discussion on parking and traffic mitigation, size, all of that opportunity?
Yes. For which item might I ask?
I guess
For trade
just
schools or
anything in
pretty
the
much
educational
anything?
services field.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
especially, I think more or less the college and university. I mean, I'm in downtown Gilbert quite a bit, and they have that
Right.
one big, large building that's
Downtown
ever-changing.
Phoenix, yeah, there's
Downtown
a lot
Phoenix
of these
has-
downtown
yeah.
places. So, I mean, that is a good point. I answered yes before I was completely sure which topic you were talking about, if it was churches or the school, because that is true just about for any of these uses. There are things that we put no on that could be CUPs. Like CUPs will come before the Planning and Zoning Commission or the council if appealed. And the idea more is that to control the uses that come in, that, as is the point of the zoning ordinance, to cultivate and culture a downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So if you deem appropriate when there's a no, that should be a CUP, there, to an extent, yeah, we definitely have the flexibility to make those decisions and choices.
And I just found that interesting because later and I forget on which page we have CUPs for parking garages, which you would think for a university or a trade school, something like that, would require something along that line. So I would personally like to see that move from a yes to a CUP for all of those that are yeses, I guess.
For what, I'm sorry?
The educational services
Oh, to
basically
make-
just become
make the yeses
CUP.
CUPs?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I still don't know if we can change the CUP for the elementary school and high schools and so forth, but we can definitely approach that for the other educational uses.
Nope.
And we can determine that later. I'll do more research and dig into that.
Yes.
Your Honor, I was just thinking on the CUPs, because as you consider trade schools and others, when it comes to attention, is on the north side of the Grand Hotel Triangle is some office. So you have I think an accounting firm, and then there's some that area. Could office also be a CUP? I don't know if office is allowed in the B.
Right now, it's allowed, and yeah, there definitely is room to maneuver around this. Comparing, for example, downtown Gilbert, which I would say is a good example. They allow offices by use permit, so which our conditional use permit, only on the ground floor. So that way you're not overwhelmed and you still have plenty of other uses. And we can. That's why we're here, is to really sort through this and propose that. If you believe, and I think the goal is to reach consensus so that it's not just one person bringing it up and I make the change, but I think if we all agree that that's the way we should go, then we should do that.
Because the CUP can offer some flexibility in what you'll want. We know we have a new owner in the downtown. It just switched hands. And as the market dictates, they may have a user come to them, say, we need a little office over here, and that gives you some daytime use. So we just want to make, I like bringing up the idea of some CUPs, so that would be a good thing to have some flexibility for us as we go.
I will say that's actually one of the big changes we made. There was no general office category. We had things like an engineering office, planning office, architect office, and that was a change, as we just condensed it to general offices.
So as written, general offices is allowed in B3 zoning.
That's correct.
But I think other things like medical offices, things that are the no. I wanted to clarify in Councilmember Biggs' suggestion on the CUP. I think, Councilmember Biggs, if I understood you correctly, under educational services, where it says no, you were hoping to put CUP in, right?
Well, correct, but also in term, because right above that is the elementary, middle, high school, college, and university. I think and I understand we're required to have them, but I do think that there's a difference of putting in an elementary school to a university that might
one of
have
those
much
two.
larger parking.
Yep.
Because anything down there, I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to have the discussions
I
of
understand.
parking garages. So changing actually pretty much that entire field to all CUPs instead of yes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to,
Okay.
So the
Make
only
sure we
thing,
understood.
can I ask real quick? The only thing I see under no was the trade schools. Is that what you were referring to? Under the
yeah.
educational
But you're
services?
referring
I
to
wanna
changing
make-
yeses to CUPs.
Yeah, I want to make everything in educational services under a CUP because we can't restrict it completely, but then that provides us the flexibility to work around parking and all of the issues that are going to come. I mean, you put a university of some form in there, even a satellite campus, you're going to talk a couple hundred kids potentially at any given time, and that's going to add up in space and all of that stuff.
What about the no? Are you wanting the no to be,
No, everything under educational services to be a CUP, including the no. All yeses and all
that
nos
all?
become a CUP.
Is that all the B1 through B5, every one of them?
every one of them.
Okay.
Personally, I'm a little bit more particular on the B3 zone because I think that's different than anywhere else.
And that's what I was trying to clarify, just to make sure and, that everyone understood what the concept was.
Robert?
what's the consensus?
So, sorry.
Well, I was just saying, do we have consensus before we move on so that Nick knows what to put in?
Well, this kind of piggybacks off of this.
Yep.
So, like, for example, physicians, dental health practitioners. So in the Fry's complex, you have a dentist's office and you have an eyeglass place. So if there are like strip malls going up in this area here, you're saying those will not, you can't have a dentist in one of those? And then,
That's why I brought this up.
Yeah.
and then.
That's why we want to talk about it.
And then, like, for example, like trade schools, like a cosmetology school, or school for cutting the hair.
Yeah.
This is something they could put in a strip mall. I mean, you don't need a big standalone building for something like that. Now, obviously, like for electricians or like the HVAC, it's a bigger facility because there's just so much involved. But if we're allowing like a shopping center type of thing, why wouldn't we allow those things to be in there?
One, I think that's one of the reasons why I think having a CUP would be great. Downtown Gilbert does a really good job at this, right in the heart of their downtown area, amongst the parking garages and that big lot to the west side is actually 2 universities. So I think there's opportunity to condense space and put all things inside a building that's not like an EVIT style campus. I think the concept you guys were thinking might have been like a whole campus.
Yeah.
Right, it could be like more of a no standalone.
That's actually, that is the direction we took with some of this. I can make note of that. This was actually something that we went a little bit back and forth with the commission. The idea was that we didn't want a medical campus, just in this specific spot, of course. Not, we would love it in different places, but I mean, just in terms of what goes downtown, you have like a medical park where you just have like, and they tend to be pretty big, and we have some throughout the city even, like on Southern, I believe. But anyway, the point being is that was what we were trying to move away from. But I do believe that we could incorporate that as not as a standalone use. So I'll make note of that. And this will come before you again, of course, so.
Is there a problem? Braden's suggesting under educational that all 18 categories be CUP, correct, Braden?
I originally suggested that, but then Matt made things connect
Well,
in my
my
head.
question there is, isn't that making it very difficult for developers to decide?
It is, and that's why Matt made things click in my head, and
Yeah.
so I think only in the B3 zone should be CUP,
Yeah, I think that-
and for all 3 categories, for elementary, middle, high school, college, university, trade school, and admin services for CUP for just the B3 zone.
Right, I will have to check on the elementary, middle, and high school. Like a public and charter schools, I do believe have certain exceptions. I will look into that, but just so you know, in case it doesn't change between now and the next meeting, that will be why, but we'll definitely consider that.
And Nick, that's just speaking to the legal arguments we were referring to
Yeah.
earlier, yeah.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of want to piggyback on what Robert said about the physician, dental, and health practitioner section. I mean, we have Horizon Health and Wellness, which is right in the B3
That's right.
area. It fits in well. Why is that an out-and-out no instead of a CUP? Including child and adult daycare services. I mean, at the old Fry's, we have a daycare. I mean, we
Right.
do, and we're going to have more people living right
Right.
around there. Why
with
would
that
it be an out-and-out no?
Yeah,
That's
I
okay.
agree with you. I think that's what you said. That was a discussion, Nick, at the policy level, and it's
Yeah.
something we're hearing loud and clear tonight, to have that flexibility, because you have some of that already in the Fry's Plaza. You already have that in the old Fry's and the new Ross Goodwill area.
Well, and, you know, we already have the food bank. It's already there. You know, and I don't know if that qualifies, Genesis qualifies under the religious categories.
Could be
But
charitable.
is it because that's on the county complex, is it only the county zoning that applies? I'm
So I don't
just,
see it in the B3 anyway, but maybe you guys can explain, Joel, a little bit. But it's
I would say county rules would apply if it's county property,
yeah.
yeah. And of course, our zoning doesn't apply to the county.
but you see those
Our
uses.
zoning doesn't apply for a lot of people in the city. And that's a fact.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, go ahead.
I do want to iterate that the zoning ordinance isn't meant to kick anyone out. The change of use, like any existing business would be grandfathered in.
Right.
Well, yeah, I understand that.
So the question is, I guess, and this was a consideration we took as we shaped it. It's like, do we want another Horizon Medical Health Center just to the east of it? And I think the general idea was, I think what we have right now, not that we're lessening opportunities, because we're really just focusing on this one section, and there's plenty of other commercial property that could be developed elsewhere. The idea was more shaping what remaining land is there for these uses. That said, I mean, I don't think we oppose allowing these things. For example, you brought up the child and adult daycare. That is allowed, but not as a standalone use. And that was like a factor that we hadn't had before. We added these kind of footnotes in for a few of these uses as a kind of way to balance that. The idea being that, especially as you have a population growing, yeah, it makes sense to have daycare. But probably not, in terms of the goal of the downtown core, probably not to have like this chunk of land just be a daycare. It would make sense if it's part of like a larger building, like an office or some kind of larger building that has room for multiple suites or a strip center. It makes sense at that point. And so we've incorporated the allowance that if it's one of those, like if it's an incidental use to this larger building, then it could be allowed. And I think we can workshop that in with like a dental center or like a dentist office. Same thing with the other offices that were described.
It makes sense to take these standalones and kind of control them a little bit better. You really want to shape your downtown. And you get one shot at it. If you mess it up and you get, so I agree. I can see what you're trying to do here. It's a little bit difficult to explain perhaps, but it makes sense. In a strip mall, yeah, fill the spaces. Standalone, no, it's not appropriate.
And then that goes back to, on page 2, there's the shopping centers. So is a shopping center, a strip mall, a Fry's, that whole area right there, or, because we allow those with no objection?
With the shopping center, this is one I actually talked about for a bit. It's a little unique in that it's like a form of development rather than a specific use in and of itself. So what, like a shopping center itself may be allowed, but then the individual suites and how they're occupied have their own questions and stuff. So I mean, you might have a shopping center in one place, and this is one that we changed, maybe not a taxidermist in there. So, I mean, yes, for the larger use, no for the smaller use.
But I'm correct in understanding that a shopping center is like where Ace Hardware is, and, you know, it's the strip mall style shopping center, or, you know, something along that line?
Yeah, I believe that's there was some debate on definition, and I believe that's what we agreed on. So that is what we settled that with.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Took a little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
We were still at Kelly.
But I think if we have general agreement, some of these, like office uses, like the dentist, like would be, I'll make note, incorporate it, so it's not necessarily standalone, but treated like the other offices. So I think everyone was generally agreed.
I have two other on page 5.
Yes.
Our downtown, what if, and I'm just bringing this up for the sake of argument, the zoos, nature parks, what if somebody wanted to come and put a big zoo in our right downtown? That could be a drawing card. I mean, I'm looking at it from a positive standpoint. So.
We had the first zoo, so why not
Yeah,
bring
I
it
know,
back?
but I mean, so why should it was changed from CUP to no, why not leave it CUP?
Well, in my view of things, what would we rather have there? I think a zoo could be cool to have in Apache Junction somewhere, but in this specific spot, you're pretty restrained on size, so you're not going to get anything like the Phoenix Zoo or the World Wildlife Zoo. You are also surrounded by either commercial or residential. So, I mean, if you pretty much picked any of these spots, this is I think the county has plans for this as a park, and then we actually have a development proposal coming up on this.
Okay.
But even to take this in hypothetically, were you to put a zoo right here, you are immediately next to someone's property or their home. And both in terms of, I guess, there's all sorts of components to a zoo, whether it's smells or sounds or. So frankly, we figured that a zoo was not the appropriate thing. Same thing for an amusement park, man, it'd be great.
Yeah.
But I was born in Houston, and Houston was actually infamous for not caring about zoning. And unfortunately, I mean, pros and cons, you know, but unfortunately what that resulted in is that you had these Houston amusement parks in them, like right next to neighborhoods, and the residents hated it because you just hear the screaming and the roller coasters all day. It was a real issue. So that's why both zoos and amusement parks were taken out.
Okay.
Like
No biggie.
just the practicality of the locations available, their proximity to these other things, and
just for that area, it doesn't mean they couldn't
No,
come.
no, some-
no,
Just that
just
area.
B3.
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody
Okay,
that
the
wants
other-
to bring a zoo back there, Apache Junction.
Before.
The other one I had is the next section down in foods and drinking establishments. You're allowing restaurants and delicatessens, but then it says caterers no. Well,
So-
a lot of catering is done by restaurants and
Right.
delicatessens, okay? So are you saying that a restaurant there, he cannot do catering?
No, and there's a no with a footnote 6, and footnote 6 is one of the ones that we included. It is allowed as an auxiliary use, but there are caterers, like almost warehouses, where it's not a kitchen, or I mean, not a restaurant, but only a kitchen, and those are like the event caterers. And the reason why it's a no, just for informational purposes, is because those are normally like, you have this big, it's almost a warehouse.
No,
It's-
I understand
yeah,
that.
okay, yeah.
But I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
that You're not saying that restaurants then can't do catering?
Right, right.
Okay.
Because you're right, like there are a lot of restaurants that have like they have their little catering van and they prepare things in the back of their kitchen, and you know, it's a side thing. It allows that restaurant specifically to serve a broader audience. And so that's why it was incorporated, just for clarity's sake. It has a footnote to say that it is allowed as an auxiliary use.
Okay.
So.
Okay, it's a standalone,
Yeah.
cannot be doing a catering as a
Right.
And
standalone.
I go along with that. I just wanted to clarify that didn't mean that
Oh, it makes
restaurants
sense.
can't do catering.
Yeah.
You're holding your ground well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense, but it doesn't always say that.
Oh, right,
you know,
right.
just on this chart, you know, so I just.
No, I had the same questions putting it together, really, like, what would be the impact of changing this? And that was what it was going to, well, that was what we considered. We didn't want people to interpret it that way. And that's why we incorporated like the footnote and things like that, that for a few different uses that, like for example, another one that has that same exact footnote is like bottled gas. You can go to Circle K and you can get your propane tank filled. And there's a Circle K right here, of course. So, but we didn't want like a standalone propane store to be downtown when you could have other uses, yeah. Like, some of this was just the incorporation of, like, some of these uses make sense, and sometimes they're just a small thing. Same thing for like alcohol, like there's a difference between having a liquor store versus selling liquor in Circle K or even Fry's or even like a fine wine establishment. Like there's differences between all of those, and so some of these lines some of them are drawn and some of them are a little bit finer, and some of them are just interpreted as we're on the job, I guess.
Robert?
I'm good.
Braden?
Yeah. Going back to page 2, it's a no for pet, and I believe that says pet supplies. I have a little note over it. Pet supply sales. Again, is that a standalone facility or something that would go into like one of these centers?
I think, frankly, we just said no. That's not to say that it couldn't be incorporated as a smaller thing. The idea was really like a big box, Petco,
Right.
like a standalone thing. That was the idea behind it, but it makes sense that if it's like a smaller retail use, then it can just fit right in. Like if it's just a strip, like something you see like in the mall is like a small little.
Right, especially
So-
I think with our dog park being there, at least within walking distance, that might become an opportunity for a mom and pop place or something along that line. And I was going to say the same.
Pet supplies, things like that. Yeah.
Right, the same with the pet daycare. While I understand kennels and overnight, I think the daycare, I mean, I look at that as like your pet spa or something like that, to have that as a asterisk, basically.
I think that makes sense, actually, especially as we have a growing dog park. So,
Right.
Is there general agreement with that idea? I personally think it makes sense to kind of have that as like an accessory use. Like, not that you want like a big box Petco, but
Right.
like I believe that makes sense as a smaller use. So I'm fine with that change if you are.
Okay. And then on page 4 for office, for data processing and call center, I feel like we have this backwards. I don't understand why we're allowing it in the B1 and B2, and we're saying no in B4 and B5. I fully get B3, but I feel like it should be the opposite.
I see what you're saying, because generally the things that you don't just put in a neighborhood are the B4, B5. I think in this case, so it was especially as we were restricting B4 and B5 to match their actual definition of being light industrial or industrial, we took the office uses out. So, and I'm not saying that that's like the right, like this is the way it should be, is as I wrote it, but that was the thought behind it, is that that B5 is as it was designed for industrials, more for like manufacturing uses and
Right.
things like that. The heavier uses, the storage yards, the heavier yards, like the things that produce, the things that typically need to be regulated because of noise or odor, or the things that you kind of try and group together. That was why B5 in general shifted.
So is your data
Why it was
center,
taken out.
is your data processing like one of these big data farms that?
That's actually a good point. You know, that now that you say that, we had this discussion, and maybe this needs to be amended. As I was saying, we changed a lot of these categories themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe data centers should be incorporated as its own category, because Mesa, like for example, you have, I think right on Elliott, you have like there's an Apple data center and a
Right.
Google data center, and those definitely would be more B4, B5.
Right.
And the reason that happened, it's a really interesting story, is, you know, in terms of employment, Mesa had the flexibility to be able to quickly have it in place zoning. One of the things on employment in this type of area is if you don't have administrative power internally, we will not be able to get those. And so Mesa was able to switch some zoning in that master plan area they had for their master plan community. And not to get too far off subject, but
Interesting.
the ability for you in the zoning that you're going to have here later in September and October for the 4 square miles to the south is you want the ability to have some flexibility and some targets in terms of density, because you're going to go over a long period of time and you don't know what the market's going to do over time. And so allowing for some flexibility, whatever that ends up being, allowed for Mesa to have that. It was first called a First Solar. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was First Solar for a little while, and the next thing you know, it was Apple. And that's 1 mile west of your border on Signal Butte and Elliott.
So if we could look into that, I don't know necessarily what the right idea to that is, but just give that some more thought.
Right.
And then on page 5, under food and drink, for restaurants, bars, clubs with amplified outdoor music, the first 3, and B1, 2, and 3 are listed as CUP. Is that because of the amplified music?
Yeah, so and this was a category that was already existing. Maybe it could, well, we weren't sure how to reword it better necessarily. The idea is simply the amplified outdoor music. Like restaurants, bars, and everything, like those are allowed uses outright. Like we want to see more of that. The idea was amplified outdoor music requires a CUP. So maybe...
What would be the purpose of that, though? We now have our noise ordinance in place. They're required to follow pretty stringent guidelines. Why would we need a CUP for that? They have to stop at 10. It can't go over a certain amount of decibels. I mean, do we need additional regulation to say what they already can do? I'm
That one's a
asking
little
you
over
guys,
my
I guess.
head,
I'm
too,
sorry.
yeah. Or it's a little above my call to make.
So we have an ordinance in place. I mean, that to me is public policy for you all. If you want to encourage that and make it as simple, maybe you don't want to have the CUP
It could be to Nick's point earlier about, amusement parks and stuff, when it's a consistent all-day thing, it'd still be a pain for the neighbors that are literally living right there in the orange, or whatever.
And
It
we will be
potentially
having-
could be
yeah,
a
and we
reason
will
why
be
you
having
wouldn't want them to be
residents.
3.
I know that the first project, the landowner, at least to the east side, is looking at residential first, as the ability to be able to self-support some of these businesses long-term. So, I mean, we look at it as a blank palette now, but we know, at least initially, the market is for some residential.
I mean, I guess with the noise ordinance, though, am I reading this correctly to say that if a outdoor or a restaurant similar to, let's say, Handlebar, okay, which is primarily outdoors, comes in and wants to have an outdoor stage, that we're going to restrict them on their stage even more so than the noise ordinance already does? And that's why we went through that whole thing.
Just as it gives us the CUP, just gives us the option of approving or not approving.
And I actually
Like
think
the
that's,
ordinance itself.
that is the
Yeah.
big point, because the conditional use permit exists to regulate
See, that's what I thought.
a lot of, it exists to regulate uses that are, well, sorry, I'm trying to think of how to say it. Straight out of the code, it talks about regulating noise for CUPs and outdoor activity in general. As it affects CUPs especially, regulate uses that affect neighbors and surrounding property. And so while there is a noise ordinance, once you have a degree of outdoor activity like that involves people, involves movement, traffic, people, not that we're saying no, just that it should go through an approval process.
Isn't there a permit, though, or is that just for the events? They don't have to have a
That's just
permit
for
for
the
this?
events.
Okay,
So
okay,
you
so it,
just approved that ordinance, and so that's what kind of Councilmember Biggs is going at. You could go through the regulatory process.
I mean, to me, it just seems overburdensome, and I understand kind of we want to have that control over potential issues, but we already have a noise ordinance in place, and we did it for a reason to help avoid some of these challenges. Now it seems like we're trying to say, well, we've got it, but you might have to have additional regulations in addition to what we already have.
I agree with Braden. I think we're setting ourselves up as a council for potential problems. If we already have a policy in place, I think Braden makes a good point. I think we should say,
I'm good with just moving it to a yes. That's what we,
There's only one advantage that I do see over what you're saying is, what if you already have 3 or 4 places there, and if there's gonna be potentially residential in that area, do we keep letting more and more come in till you have 5, 6, 7, 8 places all with outdoor music and everything?
But they're drawing in a crowd. That's what we want our vibrant downtown to be, is that drawing in,
Just, I'm playing devil's
No, I
advocate.
understand. I mean, and we, of course, have to balance that, especially knowing that there may be some future residences there. But if this is our downtown core, we really have to cater to, in my opinion, the business community that's going to be driving this downtown. And you know what you're getting into when you live in a mixed-use community like that.
And I would agree with that.
You'd
And I
think
would
so.
suggest that we need to be very cautious how we bring the residential area in.
Right.
We want to bring
Right.
people in for entertainment. We want to bring the entertainment. And we do regulate it. I agree with Kelly. And so the idea, I think, would be to be darn careful how you shape that fit the residential areas in.
I think Tempe's going through this right now. So Tempe, they just shut down a music venue. They had permission to be there. They were there first. All the residents came in later, and then this chamber will be filled with residents who came later saying, whether it's 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever it may be. Now, that venue, I think, stays open late, but then they said, we'll work with the neighbors, we'll put in acoustic, this, that, and the other thing. And then finally, they're temporarily shut down until they can come to a solution. So you're going to have conflict when you bring in residential and these types of venues. And I think it's a good point that once you have 1 or 2 or 3, it will be, I think a CUP is wise to keep it as a CUP.
And it's not that we're saying
Regardless
no.
of whether you have a noise ordinance or not.
You're on.
It's not that we're saying no by any means. And this wasn't even a change, this is the existing code. But the idea that, for reasons just stated, that it would be good to keep that.
So if you
tool.
want to go back and change no to a CUP rather than, well, that's in your B4.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that I think a CUP is necessary because to just use handlebars, it's a very old, very small building. They had to expand outside. We're going to have a lot of things built new. And are we going to want to have our new buildings have their backs with music playing out back, music playing out front? It makes a difference. And I think the CUP would help us regulate how it's actually designed more than just, yes, you can have a noise level of this, but for the city itself to say, but you have to do this and this as well.
But the mechanism of, you're completely right. The mechanism of a CUP is more than just a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
It allows us to provide approval on conditions.
But
Conditional approval. So sometimes the idea that, sometimes this should go in, but it should go in on certain conditions. And that is why it exists. The noise ordinance, and I don't know every article of the noise ordinance by heart, but the noise ordinance applies specifically to the spillover noise. But in terms of the effects of the activity in general, those are things that the CUP exists to maintain and to keep those well cultured.
So, I'm gonna change gears a little bit. This might be splitting some hairs. Ultimately, I mean, does this still fall under the whole, the code enforcer own discretion? Like, for example, you got swap meets, no, farmer markets, yes. I mean, farmers markets sell merchandise. Is it a matter of, the code enforcement walks in, I'm shutting you down because this is a swap meet? Oh, no, it's not, it's farmer's market, I could be here. No, I say it's a swap meet.
I think the swap meet was more like there exists on
Well,
south of the 60.
Yeah, I get the one you're talking about, the wall.
We
big
regulate,
tents,
we
all this-
regulate swap meets. You have to, every vendor at a swap meet has to go get a business license. And in general, I think once the one closed at the Greyhound Park, someone wants to come in, if you want to make it a CUP, we're looking at, this is your last chance to have a downtown. I'm going to go back to the shopping center discussion. Across the street, we have a shopping center, the old Fry's. We got the new Fry's. We got the Ace Hardware. If you're looking at just the purple, I would go back and rethink whether you want another shopping center on the last 3 vacant parcels in your downtown. And one of them's already, we're going to see a proposal right now. So again, a farmer's market, when you're trying to attract things and activity downtown, not that a swap meet, but a swap meet might go in the Bashas' Plaza, in the parking lot. It's not gonna be a standalone use. I think if you want a standalone swap meet, most people are probably, you're now gonna see that out on the fringe of the city, you know, where it has freeway view.
We're not talking the First Friday events or the farmer's market on a Sunday. We're talking legitimate locations, not little community events.
Yeah, permanent swap meet, I don't know that you would want that in your downtown.
Right.
But a farmer's market that's every Saturday during the winter months or the first Fridays, I think you want that in the downtown.
Right.
Sure, yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying, is it a discretion? I mean, is it like, oh, you can't be here this Saturday because you're considered a swap meet?
Versus a farmer's market?
Versus a farmer's market. I mean, because generally swap meets are only open on the weekends anyways. Not that I'm advocating for a swap meet in downtown area. I'm just saying that we don't want, I don't want to turn it to something to where a code enforcement officer says, no, because I think this is a swap meet.
Well, that's a fair point, because initially, or within the current code, swap meets / farmer's market were the same category.
And they're temporary uses. They're viewed as temporary uses, not a permanent one. So if someone wants to do a swap meet today, they can do a swap meet under our temporary use system, if you will.
As long as it's not a standalone where it's continuous.
Correct.
There's a complete setup.
Correct.
Okay, I can see that.
I think, I guess to answer your immediate question, yeah, some of it would come down to discretion. We were laxer on farmers markets, especially because of the events that already exist. The things that just kind of fit in, like on Horizon but as everything stated, that was the general direction.
Those are more like events, not standalone
Right.
buildings.
Yeah.
I mean,
And some things fall in the kind of gray areas between temporary use and use.
All right, one more time.
I-
That's over here.
The only thing, I just don't know if we had a consensus on the restaurant outdoor music thing. I mean, I still go back, I know that in both downtown Gilbert and Chandler, there's places that are 2 or 3 stories that have music on their second and third story balcony, so.
Well, we can go back and look at Gilbert and see if it's a permitted use or if they want to have some discretion as a CUP.
and does it back up to residents? That's the key. That's your problem. You're gonna
Yes.
have residents and business mixing. It's how you buffer that.
Right.
So that we're not here time and time again trying to solve problems.
And the CUP gives us that discretion to say, no, you can
I
have
can see that.
music out front by the parking lot and not
Not
out back.
Right, and again, you still can have these temporary uses. Say you're doing a fundraiser like we have been doing at the VFW. That's a temporary thing. We allow those. It's on a Sunday afternoon tailgate party they try to do. Those things are going to happen as well. But a permanent venue, generally, rather have it indoors. And maybe they just have acoustical outside or whatever. So I think a CUP, in my opinion,
I'll
is
agree with
the way to
CUP.
do that.
I do
I'm
too.
good with the C.
You're going to discuss it again 2 more times, so you can.
Yes.
For now, I think it's CUP is a consensus.
Larry, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Larry, before you sit down, you said something about shopping centers. Can you repeat that again?
Well, again, right now, it's a yes.
It's a
and-
yes.
And maybe you want to make it a CUP. I'm just, if we're just talking the B3, then within spitting distance, you have 3 shopping centers already. So those would certainly be allowed to continue, but if we're going to see the old hotel site, do you really want to see a shopping center go in there? So then maybe it's a CUP. If the old Bashas' Plaza redevelops itself, that's already a shopping center. We've got the 25% or the 35%, I'm sorry, both of those different ways to do it. But my thinking is that's going to come back as a mixed use. I think over time, maybe that mobile home park that's kind of to the north of Handlebar and all that, 10, 20, 30 years from now, if what else happens downtown, you have a vibrant downtown, the value of the land may be such that it might not be a mobile home park forever. And so what do you want that to be? Do you want it to see more housing, or do you want it to see a shopping center? So maybe just make it a CUP, and it kind of allows it, but you'd have some oversight on it.
I agree with Larry. I think that might be a wise idea for that.
And I think originally we had was there a shopping mall in here? So they're not building those anymore, just to make.
Yeah, so
everybody
I
know.
wanted to
So
clarify
I
the
think we
difference.
actually got rid of, I think we had some language before
I
it
think
had.
we incorporated it into shopping center.
Yeah, so-
because we're debating on the definitions, just as you asked a question, we had the same question internally, figuring out, like, where is the definition for shopping mall, shopping center, or a strip center?
Because I think a strip center, so that's exactly what I wanted to clarify, Larry, is just to make sure, because it's one thing if you're getting into,
Yeah.
or, you know, you're getting into hundreds of thousands of square feet versus, because I think, go back to the, so, right, where we used to have, we have Filiberto's, and then we have a strip center, and then we have the potential of some more Old West Apache Trail frontage. And I just was wondering if you had somebody come in, the landowner wanted to move quickly and didn't want to do the CUP and wanted to do a nice center shopping. Do you know what I'm getting at? Are we, just because we're going to call it now a shopping center, it could take time and maybe that discourages a developer from wanting to do commercial there. I don't know. Did we define those three
I
different?
think there's, yeah, a shopping center really is a combination of a strip center. And then we already have language in the code regarding big box. I mean, when you think about it, Fry's is 123,000 square feet. That's almost, I don't know what a Costco is, but it's basically a big box. So to answer your question, Brian, again, I think what we have is a former US highway that goes through the heart of the city, and that's just how those highways developed since 1950. This is the opportunity to do something different.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, highest and best use would not be another shopping center, strip center along Old West Highway.
Right.
And I'd like to clarify something for the people at home. We are talking about shopping centers, not stripping
Correct.
No jiggle
centers.
joints.
No jiggle
A
joints.
strip shopping center, I
Darn
guess.
it, Gail.
Thank you.
Just to
Thank
clarify.
you for the clarification.
You fun crusher.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, can we clarify if as Nick offered up earlier, we only need a work session if you all feel you need another work session, or we can take the feedback from tonight, the consensus that we heard on some of the items, and incorporate them and bring them Tuesday? I don't know. It's really up to the council if you want to see it on that August 16th again, or go straight to the August 17th.
Well, the only reason for a work session might be to just come back and show us the changes that were made and say, is that?
We can do that at the public hearing night
Yeah.
too, if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
we've
the next
hammered this
item, you
one.
might want to.
Public hearing.
Beat the dead horse.
Public hearing.
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of dead horses, cargo containers.
I think we have all we need.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you,
Great
guys.
job. Thanks, Larry.
I think Tess wants to order a
Okay.
pizza.
Do you want to take 5? Did you want to take 5 or not? It's up to you.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, I've been told, yes. 5 minutes.
He listens so well.
Oh,
Yeah, we got to get everyone to
We're not-
speak into the mics.
Discussion on case number AM-4-20, proposed changes to Apache Junction City Code, Volume 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 1, cargo containers and accessory structures. Larry?
Well, I think I'm going to have Nick do this, because Nick's so good on the list.
We could make it just easy.
It might go better.
Larry, we
So-
could just
Wanna
make
go
it easy and
faster?
just say yes.
Yes? Does anybody have any questions?
Nope, we're done.
We're done.
No pertinent yes.
Bryant, you owe me lunch, it
I'll
sounds
owe
like.
you lunch. I'll take it.
All right.
Is that sports betting then?
No.
No, I don't think there's...
De minimis.
Cargo betting.
So, we worked and reworked this. I think one of the last discussions at the council was that we're going to try to have, this is no longer called the cargo container ordinance, because although you may refer to it as that, but essentially attempting to create regulations that a cargo container is like any other accessory structure. So that's the premise then that the Planning Commission went with. And so the language that we currently have, I'm going to skip actually to the end here, is that we're going to eliminate the cargo container section, not only in the property maintenance code, but also in the zoning code 1-6-5. So what we did is we took the stuff that's in 1-6-5 and we put it, we're going to merge it. So that's kind of skipping ahead, but we've all things accessory structures, again, you can't live in your shed in your backyard. Anything over 120 square feet needs a permit. We have this new building code that deals with shade structures that applies to any property. If it's under 200 square feet, if it's open on all sides, don't need a permit for just a shade structure. All of these things need to be anchored. As it is true today, any accessory structure, regardless of size, has to meet setbacks. We always require 6 feet from other structures, 10 feet from a septic, and we've added a new provision which is 15 feet from a wash, a setback 15 feet from a wash. This is one that we may still need to work on in terms of total lot coverage. We struggled with, we've had complaints in the past. The previous mayor called one day and said, this neighbor's complaining because they look over the fence and they see the tops of 4 storage sheds. So we have no limit on the number of sheds. So there's only really one way to get around that or get at that, and that is, right now we allow you to have up to 50% of your lot coverage with buildings. So say you have a 10,000 square foot lot, you can have 5,000 square feet of building on your 10,000 square foot lot. So if your house is, say, 2,000, then you could have 3,000 square feet if you can meet all the setbacks. So we didn't really change what we're doing in the zoning districts for the lot coverage ratio, but Pinell County, they let you have for accessory structures 15% of your setback area. So think of your lot and the buildable area where your house is. You have to stay within that building envelope, but for your accessory structures, they calculate all your setback area, and however many square feet that is, your accessory buildings can be 15% of that. That's how they do it. We tried to come up with something that is roughly 15% of the size of the main building. So again, we probably can talk more about that. Utility connections, again, where we run into difficulty is where folks take something and then once you have cooking and bathing, then it's a residence. So we've clarified what you can do with storage pods when you're moving, and then temporary emergency use, we clarified that. We've always prohibited Quonset huts, primarily, I think, in just the RS-54, but throughout the city, and then painting. So again, we've clarified in here that you can do up to 200 square feet if you have a accessory structure as part of your home occupation. So we're trying to, in this new language, limit the types of businesses we're seeing in what people are using these accessory buildings for. So you'll see that in here too. Right now, an accessory building, 75% of an accessory building has to have something other than metal. So years and years ago, the city council was seeing lots and lots of metal buildings outside of its large lot zoning. So the city council back then said, okay, we're going to limit that to 75%. From a practical standpoint, we sit with folks all the time and say, well, you're going to build a garage and it's going to be metal, but now you're going to have to put some stucco or T111 cedar siding on it. Practical standpoint, it just makes sense to do 100% rather than 75. So over the years, it's just hard for someone to only put 75% of their exterior around a building and then just have 25% metal. So we just don't see it, so we thought we'd change it to 100. Again, setbacks, we want to make sure, other than all these structures really need to be to the side of the rear of the home. The garage obviously can be in that part of that front setback. If so, we have these cases where the house, somebody puts it way in the back, and now they want to have a garage, and we say, well, no, you got to move it to the side of the rear of your house. It's just not practical to do that. So we're making an exception to make sure that you can have a garage in front of your house if you, for some reason you buy a lot and the house is way in the back of the lot. We still have no limit on the size of an accessory structure in the RSGR. Again, I think that's problematic because it does lend itself to people opening businesses in this RSGR area. RS54 is, we've revamped how that works. We had language in the code that depending on the height of the wall, you had to have different setbacks. So we tried to simplify it and just say, if you have RS54, you can go 2,000 square feet and up to 5,000 with a CUP, but you have to meet all those setbacks. It's kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of this. And then we've defined these as overseas shipping containers. So there's a specific definition of an OSC, overseas shipping container. They're basically 40 feet in length. So a cargo container can be 53 or 54 feet in length because they go on the back. Some of these just hop on a semi, they're 53 foot long. We're defining a cargo container as an overseas shipping container, and the definitions we found there, 40 feet. So basically for the cargo containers, you get a 8x40, 320. If you're on a smaller lot, we got into this deal where if you're RS5, you can have this size cargo container. If you're RS7, you can have that size cargo container. Just too complicated. We're going, if you got something other than an acre and a quarter, you can have a 8x20. So I think that simplifies it. Screening. So basically, if it's screened with a 6-foot wall, regardless of zoning, no landscaping. You don't, there's no reason to put landscaping in front of, it's just gonna be the wall anyway. I'm just gonna maybe stop with residential. I know we have this document here. I don't know how I'm gonna do this in 10 minutes, Brian. It's just this one. So I'm just gonna kind of walk through here real quick. Again, this is kind of in the table, 120 square feet. You need a permit, anything over 120. That's the shade structure provision there. Everything's anchored, I mentioned that. Basically, you gotta meet all the setbacks. We've included clarification here. People get confused all the time. Where do my setbacks start from? We put specific language in here that your setbacks start at those FPEs. So again, if you have a 33-foot FPE, cannot build in the FPE, and your setback starts not at your lot line, but at that 33. So it's 33 plus the number. So I think that will help us explain this to people. Again, I went through that 6-foot separation, mentioned the lot coverage. Again, we allow these things to have water, electricity. You just can't have kitchen type materials. And we say bathing or cooking. So we know folks end up putting a toilet or a shower in these things, but we're trying to eliminate that. Emergency use, again, 60 days, we can do an extension. That's for the pods in the front yard. This is the Quonset hut thing. So these regulations apply to whether it's all residential. This one, we had the red language shows some last minute changes by the Planning Commission. So a accessory structure has to be uniformly painted or sided earth tone. And then we had one commissioner who said, well, then you get these shiny metal roofs. So now they wanted the metal roof as the sun hits it. The sun hits it and it blinds you as you're driving into your neighborhood. So the roof on an accessory structure also has to match the earth tone rather than the shiny glaring.
That was the discussion on planning and zoning years ago and still is.
Yeah, well, maybe that same one is offending someone, I don't know.
My storage shed has an aluminum roof on it.
I'm concerned about the bottom of the cargo container.
So again, anything other than RS54, GR, et cetera, you have to have some exterior siding on this thing. Business districts, this one is just to clarify that we want to see the main building built first. We want to see Fry's build their building before they build a storage building in the back, so to speak. Again, the business activity, we kind of talk about some of these prohibited businesses that we are seeing in these neighborhoods. Trucking, salvage, scrapping, etc. Then rear and side lot line, maximum size. Again, this clarified, I could go to the old code if you want to see it. Maybe the mayor's familiar with that, but there's this convoluted scheme. I'm calling it convoluted, but if you live in a certain zoning district, you got to go ask all your neighbors for permission to go over a certain size. We're just saying, look, if it's over 2,000 square feet, you got to meet your main building setbacks. And I think it eliminates sending mailers to the neighbors, getting permission, all that stuff. I think that is an improvement. Talked about that. Again, these are just clarifications that the Plan Commission did that are wordsmithing, less than or equal to. This basically says if you already have an accessory structure, you can keep it. We already went through the design. Again, if you can't see the bottom 6 feet, that's fine. We're not going to worry about it. Businesses, the main thing was, there is one, I got to go back to this one here. Oh, yes. So we have issues, number 4, where folks were kind of scrapping with people because they went and they want to store their tools. So they'll go build a garage, and they're supposed to build their house. Well, then when are you going to build your house? Well, then they've built the garage that it basically has living stuff in it. So then we're fighting with them. If the true purpose is to store your tools, then we're saying go get a overseas shipping container, store all your tools in it, start building your house, or build your house and your garage all at the same time. So this is a big change, and we're saying no more building your garage before your house. So that is a big policy change there. Not much on commercial. Again, the reason it's all yellow is because we're moving stuff from a whole new section over to this new section. So basically got to be accessory structure should be behind the main building. We had some discussion about Walmart. They often have 10 cargo containers in the back. This allows them to have the 10. Then the screening of the shipping containers. The last big thing is, this is the definition, which is in Chapter 9, which is the property maintenance. And again, there's a whole new section. And I guess the history of cargo containers, when this went back and forth over the years, was somehow it wasn't in the zoning code. It ended up being in the property maintenance code. It really is a zoning thing. We think this is a better definition that's in the property maintenance code. And we have 2 different definitions today of shipping containers. So we think we should only have one definition, and we think the definition is much more clear in the current property maintenance code, so we're going to slide that over into the... So, okay.
You can't out-code creative people. We've seen some creative,
Yeah,
we
really.
have seen some stuff here where people cut a semi-truck in half and did it.
Yes, and that's what this does. So we are saying a overseas shipping container is not a truck box that you took the wheels off of.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, any questions for Nick then?
I do, Your Honor.
Yes.
All
Start
of
at
my
the top,
questions-
whatever you want to do.
All of my questions are for Larry, so. So on page 1, bullet point number 2, it says permit required and goes into accessory structures over 120 square foot in size. But then on the presentation on slide 3, the oversized storage containers max out at 160 square foot. So if I had a 140 square foot cargo container or overseas shipping container, I'd have to get a permit for that?
Anything over 120. So if you get a cargo container that's 8 by 14, I think it is, something that's going to, so you can buy these cargo containers
Right.
8 feet and any length you want. if that cargo container is 120 square feet, it's just like any other accessory structure. Once it's over 120, so yes, you need a permit for the 160 square foot cargo container.
So we allow them, but then we're gonna permit for that 40-foot, the 40-foot difference or square foot difference. I guess, what would the rationale be behind that? Why would we not just say if it's less than 160 square foot, specifically geared towards the overseas shipping container, you don't need a permit for it because you can go up to that? Just seems like a lot of work for the $100 fee or however much it is, and then to process it for
We were just going on the
40.
premise that we're treating them all the same, no matter what the structure is, whether it's a cargo container or anything, if it's over 120, it simplifies it, I think, for the public, anything over 120. So I think if we say it's over 120, but if it's this thing and it's less than 160, then.
So could we not just make it if it's over 160, it needs a permit? Because that's allowed on your property. Why create the additional work for 40 square foot?
Right now, the city has decided that anything over 120 needs a permit. And we've been operating under that for way before 2006, so.
But this would allow us to potentially change that, correct? To move it to the
Well, we'd also
160
change the building
square foot.
code too.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense for that. And then
Was I on the right slide? I don't even think I was on the right slide.
you
were referencing.
you were close. That's fine.
Three.
On back to the document there,
Yep.
on page 3, bullet point 2, says that it has to have the 100% exterior and all of that. I guess I'm just confused because earlier then you had said, you know, if it was covered by your fence, then you don't necessarily have to have it. These are 8 foot high. Most fences are 6 foot high, so we're going to require somebody to cover it 100% because of the top 2 feet.
So again, in the spirit of treating everything the same, I'm going to go back to this now. I'm going to go to this cargo container right there. That's the spirit of this, is that we're not getting, if we're treating everything the same, then if I want to have a accessory structure and it's a garage, it's not going to be a metal-sided garage. If it's going to be a cargo container, it's going to have something other than metal, regardless of the 6 foot so the 6 foot only relates to the landscaping.
Right. So we would require that, though, if it was a 8 foot metal tough shed, then we would also require that to be 100% covered.
If it's over 120 square feet, yes.
If it's over 100, okay.
So if someone wants to get a 120 square foot cargo container, they don't have to, they don't need a permit, so they don't have to put the other exterior cladding on the outside.
So we're only talking about that 40 square foot. Got it. That helps.
Or even the 320 is only allowed in the RSGR,
Right.
and you don't have to cite it in the RSGR.
Okay.
So you can have the metal-sided cargo container in the RSGR, because you can have a metal shed up to 5,000, or unlimited size of a shed in a. Oh, we did eliminate the red barn. I should go back to this. That was almost lost on me.
Twice the size of the house.
I think this provision,
And no landscaping.
And paint
I
does
think
stick
it's
to metal.
actually right here. So it has to be earth tone. So I'm thinking that the broad side of that red barn is not earth tone, and maybe some places it might be, but hopefully this is a provision that would say no more red barn. So if they're going to have a barn, it's going to be one of our kind of what we're calling the desert tone, if you will. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Nope, you're good.
Councilmember.
That actually.
So was one of your questions maybe?
No, that
Oh.
wasn't, but I was able to answer my other question while listening.
Okay.
So I'm good. Thank you.
Gail?
Thank you for doing this. This was not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I think I've said this, Kelsey really, this thing was just, it was hard to, she looked at this for like a day and kind of put it in this format, and she really helped kind of organize it better, so I appreciate her help on this.
And I hate to sound really negative, and this all looks really good, but my faith that anybody will follow this is non-existent. And you put a lot of work into this. I still only want overseas shipping containers the way it is, the way we've had it. To change it, to put it into smaller lots, to me, it's a industrial, commercial use product. It was never designed for residential use. It doesn't look residential. It doesn't help property values. It actually detracts from property values, especially from your neighboring properties, because how many of these things do we have sitting around that aren't painted, they have numbers on them, they just move them in and pray like hell nobody turns them in, forgetting one. Even the two that they put side by side and then made a carport in the middle of them, you know. This isn't gonna be an issue south of the 60, but this is gonna be an issue that's gonna separate North Apache Junction and South Apache Junction, because these are going to be only in our neighborhoods that don't have HOAs. So our older neighborhoods, many of them, most of them don't have block fences, block walls around them. People are gonna just be bringing these in. So I like all of the additional verbiage and descriptions that you have and clarifying where they can be or can't be, but I don't want to see them in any neighborhood except for the 1.25 acre lots. And to put them in there to be our so-called, you know, our pristine big lot neighborhoods, my God, you drive around there and the people that have all kinds of construction, all kinds of business items sitting around it. Even for the CDC, our lot cleanups have been people that had at one time been in business, got old, got sick, they can't move their stuff anymore. It's like we've seen it time after time. I don't think these things do one thing for anybody's property values. It does nothing, and, you know, people that want to bring them in, we were told, you know, you don't get pack rats. I have a friend that has one in his industrial area. He has pack rats in his. Pack rats will eat through the floor of anything and dig under it. It doesn't matter. I just don't think they should be in any of our older neighborhoods. If we're just on the verge of all of these companies coming in and building houses, and they're gonna drive around our older areas and go, well, this is really crappy over here. This isn't so bad over here. This doesn't help us. And we don't have any way to make people stop bringing them in. We haven't been able to. Our fines or our permit process, they still just slide them in wherever they want. So other than having, you know, the description of what you have to do on the outside of it, I don't believe they belong anywhere except for 1.25 acres or bigger. But thank you for all your hard work.
And the Plan Commission, too.
Yes.
Robert?
No, I don't.
Gail? Or Gail?
Kelly.
That's Kelly.
Kelly?
I'm sorry.
Kelly.
Gail's over there, yeah. Kelly?
Okay, so,
I've sat a lot of places.
so just to clarify, Larry, so basically, any size lot in Apache Junction can have an accessory building, cargo container, as you want to call it, on your lot, as long as it's
No more.
No, okay, it can only be half of the size of your residence, is that correct? So if I have a 2,000 square foot home, I can have a 1,000 square foot cargo container?
No, 1,000
Okay.
square feet of accessory structure. Cargo container can only be 160 square feet.
It can only be
You have
100,
one cargo container on any size lot, so whether it's an acre and a quarter, you get one. If you have 10,000 square feet, if you're RS10, you can have one cargo container that would be 160.
160.
So you could
Oh.
have a 160 square foot cargo container and have another 800 square foot accessory building, using your example, 840, I guess it was.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're only limiting the square footage of the cargo containers to either 320 or 160.
okay, so,
And then there further, again, there are current limits on the total lot coverage you can have. You're supposed to have a yard. You're not supposed to have 100% of your yard filled with buildings, the way the zoning, since what year, Bryant, 1920 something, the way zoning and
Yeah,
open
Euclid,
space
yeah.
and air and all that. So you're supposed to have a front yard, supposed to have a backyard. You can fill that up with some amount of buildings.
okay, so if I'm on a, not on an acre and a quarter, I'm on a regular residential lot, and I have a 6-foot fence that separates my home from my neighbor's home, and they have a cargo container, so, and you said they're approximately 8 feet in height? Okay. What's typically another type of accessory building? How tall are those typically? Like a regular shed?
Typically, they're going to be 8 or 10. I mean, it's
Okay.
unusual to have, unless it's a RV, and I think that's why the city went with some of these regulations early on. We're getting these metal RV buildings all over town, and then the city was like, well, I think the one, Rudy, was over there off of Meridian and got some big, huge metal building around 4th or 5th Avenue. That kind of started the whole thing about regulating building materials and size, height of accessory buildings. So the height of an accessory building typically is 20 feet overall, right, Rudy? So the peak? Yeah, so so that kind of dictates the height of your sidewall, but then you'll have setbacks, of course, from that. But a typical garden shed's supposed to be, 3 feet. So if it's under 120, it's just 3 feet off the lot line. So the cargo containers would be, if we treat them like an accessory structure, they would be, depending, it'd be 5 feet, Rudy, is that right? Depending on the zoning district? Yeah, so instead of 3. So I don't know if you're getting at, when I'm sitting in my backyard, I'm going to be looking at the top 2 feet of a cargo container, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way this is done is that top 2 feet, maybe, and all of it actually, has to be sided with
Has to
some,
be cited.
yeah.
So, I just kind of have mixed feelings because if everybody did what they were supposed to do according to this and put siding around it and all that, that would be great. But some of these accessory structures that I see going up in neighborhoods, my God, they're awful. They're under the 120 square feet, so they don't have to have a permit. But it's hard to know, which is going to be better and which is going to be worse. And getting people to comply with the code is going to be difficult as well. So kind of have mixed emotions on this. But I do want to touch on the, you were talking about the RSGR and having basically unlimited size. That is a problem because people are in neighborhoods using them for businesses. So can we look at narrowing that down? And again, this is not specific to this, but we see this in neighborhoods, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're putting these big 10 or cargo, they're not cargo containers, but accessory buildings, but they're running businesses out of there is what they're doing, because there's just no way that you need that large of a container for any type of personal.
So a machine
family
shed,
use.
you're talking about a machine shed type thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But to
So
me,
right now, there's no limit on the size. Again, you have an overall lot coverage, and I think on RSGR, it's like 35%. So the smaller the lot, the more lot coverage. So the bigger the lot, it's like you have more land area, but the lot coverage ratio goes down as the lot gets bigger. So you can't cover, I think it's 35% of your lot. We could pull up the table.
and the challenge to me on the building, though, Kelly, is that the building isn't what's causing them to run a business out of their space. It's them. So we need to go after the fact that they're running an illegal business on their property, not the fact that they have a big building that they just happen to be
Yeah, but
housing that in.
That's easier said than done. I mean, in terms of proving that, so, but.
Right, but, yeah.
I think it invites
Yeah.
it, kind of.
Couple-
And you may not be the first, so you buy a building, and you buy a property, and it's got a 8,000 square foot building on it, and you had your hobby cars or whatever you were doing in there, and then the next person buys it because the other person
Right.
moved on, then they look for those types of things. So
Right.
that's what I tried to do with the other part of the language in this B here, to
We can't solve.
essentially try to, what are the types of businesses we're seeing? We're seeing sand and gravel companies out there. We're seeing tow truck companies with 3 big tow truck rigs on their RSGR. I don't know, we got one with 2 or 3 school buses on it. I mean, so we have
You got a lot of kids.
salvage and scrapping and,
Auto
you know,
repair.
yeah, so,
Yeah, but the
yes.
issue there
So that
isn't
was,
the
we were
building.
trying to address
It's
that
the
here, but I think we need to address
illegal
that in our home occupation part of our code as we look at the code too. That basically, we're talking B 1 through 5, we're getting some B4 and B5 uses in the RSGR.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
So far, the meeting hasn't been so much of a discussion. It's been going down the line for comments, and 2 of us have really been waiting patiently, so I'd
Yeah,
like to get
and
my
I'm done.
shot in here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I only have 2 things for you, Larry. Anymore, people are building outside fire pits and everything like that, and I've been heading that way. But a shade structure of 200 square feet is definitely not big enough. One of these where you put up some poles, they're anchored and everything, is how it's gonna be done, but with one of those cloth things over it. It's 200, that's only 20 by 10 feet. That's not,
That is without a permit. You can build one, if it's RSGR, I guess you can build it
I understand, but
unlimited
what if I
size.
wanted to build a 20 by 25 feet?
You can, if you
Get a
get a
permit.
permit.
But
You just
why
need-
why are we requiring people to have a permit to build, what's
So
the
it doesn't-
safety reason?
So when we get the straight line wind, it's not over at your neighbors. It has to meet a building code.
Okay.
So if we're not doing an inspection, we don't know it meets the building code. Already,
Get
we're
permits
saying if
for trim?
it's
So
200
Larry,
square
is there
foot.
something in the building code that says that once it
200
gets-
square feet is, anything over 200 square feet needs a building permit
Okay.
in the
That's big-
building code.
That's
But I
probably
mean-
some physics
And that's
related.
why we went from 120 up to 200.
That was just my question. There's got to be some reasoning, like a safety reason
Yes,
behind it.
anchoring, and yeah, it has to make sure that it's got the certain types of straps for the
Okay.
ceiling
I
joists.
don't want to start building and then be told that I don't have my permit.
Yeah, don't pull a Braden.
We know where
Yeah,
you
we
live,
won't
though.
do-
so.
Okay. The other thing is residential storage units, and it says there specifically in big bold letters about no business stuff. How does that apply to somebody who has a home business, though? Aren't they allowed to have some kind of storage for?
Yeah, up to 200 square feet in their house or in a building.
Okay, but back somewhere in here, I forget what page it was on, it says "no business" in big bold capital letters. Not here, not here.
Other than allowed as part of a home-based. So we allow an agricultural use, so this section here says,
No, it wasn't here. It's back, it's some, I don't remember where it was.
I think it was not running any businesses out of the shipping container.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't
Okay.
apply to a home-based business.
Yeah.
yeah, we're saying you can have a home-based business, we have regulations on it,
Okay,
and again, you can use up to 200 square feet of an accessory structure for your home-based business.
okay.
but.
I thought, I read
think-
it though to mean that because it was in big bold capital letters, it said no businesses.
No. I don't know where you're seeing that.
You go, it's up right at the, it wasn't here in this. It's
Was it in
some-
the slideshow?
I don't remember
Oh, it was in
where
the
it was.
slideshow, maybe.
Maybe that's what it was. I
Yeah,
can't
right
remember
there.
where it was. Yeah, right here. See, personal storage, home occupation, no businesses. But a home business would,
Yes. So,
Yes, this is
yeah, you can have a home, what's important, this is important right here. This is
Okay.
just a slideshow.
okay,
So essentially, if you have a home-based business, you can do it, and we
Okay.
certainly allow it up to 200 square feet. We were, again, trying to also look at these our B4 type businesses that are out there.
okay.
All right.
That's all I had.
Krista?
So I disagree with having shipping cargo containers, whatever you want to call them, the same as an accessory structure. Because an accessory structure or shade cover, whatever, is something that's being built. And I can certainly understand why it would need to be regulated over a certain size, made sure it's not going to blow over your fence. Cargo containers aren't going to blow away. They're secure, they're not going anywhere. I don't understand the need for a permit. It's not a safety issue at all. The only issue that you're gonna get into with a cargo container is the looks. We can take care of that with either screening it or painting it. But as far as any safety issues, so I completely disagree with putting it in the same category as that. As far as, are people still allowed to have any number of sheds that they want? They can still have, they can go
Well,
buy
we
these-
tried to limit that here as
Okay.
well.
Okay,
15.
What is the limit gonna be? Because that is something that I thought would be a
15%.
trade-off here.
We were, yeah, looking at 15% of all your sheds.
Okay.
and so, you know, we talked about, when the marijuana issue came up, we talked about, but the people want it, the people want it. And now that the cargo containers are coming up, it's like, no, it's gonna ruin the neighborhood. The people are wanting cargo containers, obviously, if everybody's got one. This is what the people want. So we need to take a look at it and just regulate it appropriately. We have barn-shaped sheds that are way beyond the normal 8x10 peaked roof that go, they're like a double story or a story and a half shed, height-wise. As far as, we keep saying that nobody needs to have that much personal storage. I've seen people that have storage units like the Red Barn, 2, 3, 4 times the size of their house, and it has nothing in it but books and stuff. That's their business, it's not our business. If somebody chooses to have stuff, the other issue that I have with, we're continually trying to hamper people that want to have these cargo or whatever you want to call them units. We keep complaining about cleaning up our community. Well, by golly, clean it up. Let the people have the cargo containers, shove their crap in there, out of sight, out of mind. Just make them paint it. I don't understand why we would not, why make it difficult for cargo containers are here, they're not going away. They're gonna be a thing because they're not affordable right now, but they will when the price goes back down as they become more plentiful. I just don't, we want people to clean it up, let them have them. They want 3 or 4 on an acre and a quarter, whatever, who cares? If it's within the 50% ratio, why, I don't understand why just limit it. So I can have 1 cargo container, but I can have 20 sheds. To me, it doesn't make sense. And these sheds, been there, done that. They do not last. They don't last, they do blow over, they blow up, they blow around. To me, I just don't understand, and I don't understand the permit thing. If somebody is in the easement, okay, fine, make them move it. We have easement regulations. If it's ugly, make them paint it. You know, colors, whatever, white, brown, tan. But I'm not understanding, I don't understand the permit. I don't get it. And it is absolutely not the same as an accessory structure, and I don't believe it should be considered the same. You can't move that thing, it's not gonna blow away, so.
Your Honor. So are you suggesting we eliminate the
Get your own.
Like the minimal, the separations. So chances are if you have multiple, you're in a rural area, chances are you have a septic tank. Chances are you may even have a wash running through your yard. I mean, it'll make it very challenging even to put one if it's any substantial size because of, you gotta mind the setbacks, gotta mind a septic, you gotta mind another structure, you gotta mind an easement, you gotta mind a wash. So I mean, I'm just asking, it's the way you're coming across it, so should we not have any sort of regulations on separations?
I don't understand the question.
Well, because you're like, well, if someone's on an acre quarter and they got 2 or 3 of these things, so what, let them do it. But this would prevent that from happening for sure, the way the separations are. They wouldn't be able to put probably, I mean, depending on the size, I mean, you would think one would be challenging with all the rules of the separations and the setbacks. While those are in place, you'll get probably one and maybe even the 120 square footer. And I'm talking the rural areas. You know, if there are some inner city neighborhoods that have bigger lots without homeowner associations, they're probably on city water, you know, things like that. They don't have those kind of problems. But as far as the large acre and quarter rural lots, between the setbacks and the separations, that alone makes it so you could only maybe possibly just have one. I mean, so I'm just asking if that's, I'm not trying to be, you know, smart aleck about it. I'm just saying, so are you suggesting that those should disappear too?
I'm not putting one in a wash. I can't imagine anybody spending that kind of money in.
Well, it's got to be 15 feet from the wash. I mean, so it's not like someone would put it in the wash, but you got to be 15 feet away from it, and at the same time be 6 feet away from your septic, and at the same time, or 12 feet, 10 feet away from your septic, and at the same time be 6 feet away from something else, and at the same time not be in a setback.
I would think, though, that somebody who needs the type of space that Krista might be talking about and dealing with a lot that you're talking about isn't going to be looking to put 2 or 3 cargo containers on the property. They're going to be looking to actually build some form of a building that's already going to be, you know, they may have to get the permit for it, but once they build the thing, that's not going anywhere. So I don't think what you guys are talking about are the exact same thing, because I can't imagine somebody spending the money to get 3 or 4 cargo containers to store all the same things that they could build a building for cheaper. And it's going to be bigger and get around the issues of having 3 or 4 cargo containers.
I just don't understand the purpose of a permit.
I agree.
I totally get building a structure, you know, over a certain size for a shade structure or accessory or whatever. Totally get it, have a permit. A cargo container is not, you can't anchor it. It's not going to blow away.
So sheds, you don't, so like any, just say a tough shed that's bigger than 120 square feet, they don't need a permit?
Well, I can understand, what I'm saying is I get it. There's a difference between a tough shed and a cargo container. Cargo container is not going to go anywhere. A tough shed, I've had a tough shed come over the fence.
Well, a tough shed that is brought onto the property that's bigger than 120 square feet, that's maintained, because if you don't maintain a tough shed or an aluminum shed, they are going to go flying, especially the ones with the wood floors that sit on the ground. That's their structure, is that wood floor that gets termite eaten. And then there's no strength to those, and yeah, they go flying. So what you're saying is anything bigger than 120 square feet don't need any kind of a permit. So you're saying then only cargo containers bigger than that don't need it because they're not going to go flying away?
What's the purpose of the permit?
So
It's a safety
so
issue.
that it's safety and the fact that you have to have it within your net property line, so that, just like the guy on Goldfield, so that they're not sitting in the FPE. I mean, he claims he didn't even know that was a road. So you just bring him in and put him wherever the hell you want him? Because that's what the permit does. It says, no, you can't put it in your front yard. No, you can't put it in your side yard. And you have regulations. So, yeah, people want them, but people, want a lot of things in certain areas that we can't fix everybody's construction issues. And if you want a cargo container, we're saying you can have them, but these are the regulations. So are you saying you don't think a cargo container should have any regulations? They can just bring them in and put them wherever you want?
To some degree, because it's not a safety issue.
Well, then let's just throw the whole damn thing out, and why have a permit for anything?
I can see having a permit for something that's not as solid of a structure, something people aren't building cargo containers. They're shipping containers for a reason, because they're solid and they're secure.
And they're
And they're tough.
commercial and industrial.
Wait a minute, but aren't we mixing kind of apples and oranges here and assuming that a permit means there's a safety issue? It's not. As Gail's saying, the permit is, correct me, Larry, the permit is so that it's seen that it's placed in the right location, not that it's a safety issue.
Yeah, you can get a permit and the thing's still going to blow away. I mean, a cargo container won't, but
That's what I'm talking about,
larger
cargo
building.
containers.
In
The
the case-
permit isn't for a safety issue.
In the case
It's
of an accessory structure that you build on site, yes, it's safety and location.
Right.
Cargo container would be
It's the
primarily building materials, did you site it? Did you paint it? Is it in the right location?
So we're now having to not just paint them, but we're having to put siding
Yeah,
on
I-
cargo
Correct.
containers.
I still don't agree with that one
I don't
personally,
agree with
but
that either.
I think the same thing with any accessory structure. I mean, personally, if I put one in my yard, I have a 6-foot fence that you can't see through all the way around it. So you can only see the top two. I have to cover 100% of it. I don't agree with that.
I'd say paint it.
I would agree with painting it. You paint it the color of your house, an earth tone color. I do not agree with having to cover 100% of it with a stucco, a wood, a brick, whatever the heck you want to call it, to cover the top 2 feet that no one's going to see anyway.
Well, your neighbor sees it. That's why you have to paint it.
Paint
Well, I
it the
agree
same
with
color
painting.
as your house.
I agree with painting it, for sure.
All right, anyone else?
This is a work session, so
Yep.
this input is what we're looking for.
Yep.
It's what we need to do, so we can get ready an ordinance. So I think I'm hearing that we need to bring back the ordinance, or in our next discussion of our favorite subject, is painted only.
No,
What?
paint it as a minimum.
Painted as a minimum.
Yeah, I just disagree with having to side a cargo container.
If
There's
you-
no difference. If you're gonna, what's the difference? If you paint it,
Well-
what's the difference? And
well-
paint does stick to metal.
Well, should you say paint it if you have a solid wall around your property where it's not seen?
I
I'd
don't-
still say paint.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw in a comment here. I've been mainly sitting back listening to you all.
Nothing further, Your Honor. I'm pretty sure I still have the floor.
And the thing is, what I don't want to happen is to have, I'm going to say like a wood siding where you've gone and purchased the expensive ones right now, plywood and put on the outside, and you're not properly taking care of it over a period of time, and that's going to degrade and start looking bad in a very short period of time. Where I think the painting of them in the earth tone or in the color of the home is the ideal aspect on it. That way you can paint over the shipping numbers on them and everything else and totally remove that. All right, I've thrown my 20 cents
If we're gonna
involved
go
into
into,
this.
if we're gonna go into siding it, you might as well build because by the time you secure the siding or the wood or whatever to the cargo container, now you're talking about drilling holes in the side, now you're talking about it leaking. You might as well take the wood and build a structure. Why would you take wood or siding or whatever and put it around? It doesn't make it look any better. And that can come off the cargo container. Paint it. Or if we really want to cover it up, paint it and add tall bushes or something.
Okay, I'm going to.
Can we say that if you have a opaque fence, so wood, block, whatever, only the portion above, the way we have it now, it's like the portion above, or the whole thing has to be
Anything that's
painted.
seen.
So if we have it, we're just the portion above, so if you didn't have the opaque fence, then the whole thing would have to be either covered or painted. Does that make sense?
you're
Only
saying-
the
I'd say-
portion that your neighbors, so that they're not looking at an eyesore.
And
I'd say the whole thing painted.
yeah, I don't know.
Say that the
Again,
whole
it
thing
goes
has to
back
be painted.
I'd say the whole thing
The
has to
whole
be
thing,
painted.
paint the whole thing.
Whether you have an opaque fence or
Right.
not.
Right,
Just
but
paint
no,
at a
no wood
minimum.
siding, no stucco, no anything, which is
That
what
gets
Gail's
really-
getting at.
Right, and that gets really hard to enforce. Over the years, I've seen that, and it's just better to just paint cheap, just paint it
Yeah,
100%.
paint it
And
at a
it's
easier to-
minimum.
I
Just
think
to
minimum, it
clarify.
needs to match the color of your house or be a
Desert color.
Desert.
a desert colors, thank you.
Again, that stemmed from the mayor's presentation.
Wait a minute, a house down the street from me is
Originally,
pink.
when we were talking about this, these were gonna be nice, and that's what the plan commission was, that's what we thought we were getting.
And just to clarify, it's, the way it currently reads, shall uniformly painted or sided, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but in the other section.
Oh, in the
it
other
talks
section, it
about
talks about.
This section, you have to have 100%. If we're treating all accessory structures the same, and if a cargo container is an accessory structure, and so is a tough shed, they were treating them all uniformly.
So strike that section, basically, is what I think.
Okay.
personally.
No, it'll be revised to say that if, we'll have to go back here and say, other than a cargo container,
Oh, yeah.
Your
Yeah.
Honor,
Yes.
can you go back down a little bit? Or, well, back to where you were just at,
okay?
as far as.
This one
the-
here?
Well, with the material, like, okay, wood, masonry, brick, building materials, I mean, this is the material that makes up what it's got to be. Can we just throw metal in there,
I think it's just simpler.
or steel?
This applies to all accessory structures, so if you want to not have cargo containers, only, I guess if you only want them painted, then I think we should just make that point, make that clear.
Yeah, except for cargo containers.
Except for
or
cargo
as-
container, overseas shipping containers, so,
It's a good idea. I see where you're going.
Just change the building material
Yeah.
to what a cargo container is made of.
I'm sorry, can we,
a metal-covered, metal building,
So it's given all accessory.
but if a metal building would be covered with metal?
no, then that goes back to, the removing the difference between an accessory structure and a cargo container. If we add metal, then the only stipulation that we're saying is paint the damn thing. That's it. That,
Fine with it, I'm just,
Yeah, he's just trying to
I'm
Figure
trying
out
to
how
clarify
to
by,
word it.
by
Mine's metal.
taking Robert's suggestion and adding metal as a building material, then it
Yeah.
doesn't work, I don't think.
Yeah.
But if you want to say you only have to paint cargo containers, that's in a different, we'll have to revise this section and the other section.
Those things need to be painted. Totally agree with that. Paint them all. Get them the desert colors.
Okay, I'm going to say I'll adjourn this work session. Thank you.
So are we coming back on the Monday or just the ordinance? We're
How much
coming
time
back
do you
to
need
the
for
regular
Monday?
meeting?
I need time to look at it.
Okay.
What? I'm talking about, we coming back, we have a public hearing on the 17th. Are we having a work session on the Monday on this again, or you just want me to bring the ordinance just like you did with Nick?
Yes.
Just like we did for the prior ordinance, do you want us just to come back for Tuesday? Do you think we're close enough? Or do you want to have it be on Monday and then do Tuesday?
I'm fine with it.
I agree, bring it back on Tuesday, and if we don't want, if there's
Okay.
something
You
different.
can always
we can
pick it out 2
continue
weeks.
Yep, yep.
Okay, thank
Let's
you.
bring it back for that, Larry. Thanks.
Don't need